Benny, you have your mic open, Benny. I mean, if you do want to leave your mic open and just blast the game, sure, why not? Just disturb the room. Who cares, right? No, don't have to be sorry, Ben. This is gonna be great when people watch this broadcast. They're gonna be like, "Is there something wrong with J-Dubs? Who's he talking to? Is he having some sort of religious experience?" There you go, Benny. Nice picture. Oh, I don't like that. That's not good. That cat's smoking. I'm glad I don't smoke. Such a filthy habit. I could go for a nice cigar, though, to be honest with you. People upstairs do dope all the time. I don't know if people can hear, but their fire alarm is going off. They're probably doing dope up there. I live in an apartment, yeah. Or as they say in England, a flat. It's basically, are my neighbors vile? Pretty much. Yeah, they're pretty vile. We're gonna get more people in here, Smart. When are we gonna get this jig on? Shinjig. Shin. I don't even know. I can't even talk. Shindig is what I was trying to say. Yeah, that video that Ruben's playing is pretty much how it is in my apartment. You just get brother walks up to you, accosts you, and that's how it usually is. Oh, we lost Benny. Oh no. So, Ruben, what's on your mind, man? How you been? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, it seems like I don't know. I mean, and food, which I will have soon. That sounds good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, it seems like the Israel. It seems like Israel had some problems with people accosting them too in this week's Bible study. Yeah, can't even go places without assholes. You know, messing around with you. Seems like that's the way it is. If you fuck eat them. I like the Bible. I like the wording that they use, like how it says like God delivered them onto the Israel and stuff, like as a it's basically saying that they're gonna take them out, in a nice polite way. Eh, we delivered them. That's what I'm gonna say for now on when I eject someone from the room, and then the Lord delivered them onto me, and then boom, they're gone. Is that who is that in your video there, Ruben? Is that um yeah, Morgan Freeman, yeah. He's young in that. What movie is that? That must be like in the 70s or something, or at least the early 80s. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's the fire alarm. I mean, there are people upstairs who just, they're so lazy they don't even bother to. Hey, welcome to the room, Pedro.
Hi.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
How's your day been?
Pretty good.
Now, do you know Reuven?
Yeah.
Would you like to expel upon that?
I know him from the Bible Geek.
Oh, okay, I see. Is there anything on the agenda for this evening for you?
Just waiting on Reuben.
Waiting on moving. Where you going?
I'm just waiting to see what he's going to say.
Who's gonna say?
Reuben.
Oh, Reuven? Oh, I don't. He doesn't speak.
Yeah, I know, but
Okay. I mean, besides waiting for Reuven, are you doing anything else this evening? Going out,
I'm
doing anything?
probably going to watch some TV later.
Oh, TV. That's not good. That would rot your brain. What you planning on watching?
Defiance.
Defiance. Okay. That's on the Sci-Fi Network, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Brandon, how you doing, Brandon?
How you doing?
I'm all right. What's on the agenda for the evening, bruh?
Nothing much. Just with my
Nothing
family.
much. Okay.
Actually. Oh.
So, Brandon, what you been doing
Yeah.
lately for fun?
I've made a few videos actually.
Oh, you have been poning the
Yeah.
atheists?
What?
Have you been
Oh.
poning atheists?
I don't know. I don't think they really want. They don't really like want to. No, I don't. I think I am, but I don't know if I should say that. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, they get their feelings hurt and then they won't stop crying, you know?
Just pretend like they pwn us all the time, right? So it's kind of like it's easier to make that sort of like.
Right. No, I hear you, bro.
Then you
Yeah.
say to us, it was like, you know. It's like.
Yeah, I
just a
think you
bunch
should
of
just
kind of
do
like,
whatever you want to do on your channel, you know? It's your channel.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Like,
what they think of
I'm just a bunch
themselves, right? They're just animals, you know? That's what they say.
It's like, where did
So
the
when they
car
start
come
flinging
from?
poo around, you know?
Yeah, it's like, where did the car get to without the dealer, the owner, operator, all that kind of shit, right? And then afterwards it can look like it's just made by a natural process on its own, but I think that's their own illusion. They say we have the illusion of design. Well, they have the illusion of like just blind chance, right? So opposite illusions, right? You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah,
to
I
me
hear
that's
you,
too
man.
English accent. Yeah.
I think they're more on the side of delusional than illusional, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean I like people who are believe in God because they're more like they're more what's it not nicer. They could be meaner, but they could that's way more possible to be meaner these days than it is to be nice because they just think that they need to be nicer. Well, they're hiding all their mean kind of like like we're gonna and then they're niceness mean like look like they're all vocal right and they're all like just want to like destroy everything, want their world to end and all that shit, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, Pedro, what's your theological position?
Atheist.
Atheist. Oy. All right.
Yeah, it's
Why is
like
that? If you don't mind me asking.
I don't think there's any evidence for God.
No evidence for God, huh? That's rough.
yeah. Hey,
Brandon,
it's like
what's
I'm
your
not a theist,
theological
I'm an
position?
atheist.
What is your
Theist.
theological position, Brandon?
Theist.
Okay, but you believe in God, any
Theist.
particular one?
Um I don't I wouldn't say that, but maybe I can't really say that. It's kinda really personal. I don't really know how to say
No, no,
that.
yeah,
Like
it's good. Keep that to yourself. You don't want people ragging on you.
yeah.
That was
I
my
was like
mistake, was coming
yeah,
onto the Google Hangouts and talking about what I believe. That was the
yeah.
biggest mistake, yeah.
Hey, but it's like I'm not a theist, I'm an atheist. It's like, okay, atheist, how you doing, buddy? He's like, no, no, you don't understand. You're the atheist, I'm the atheist. Get it? He's like, oh, okay. What? What?
Yeah, I always found that stupid too. Like they slap an A before a word and it means the opposite, you know?
That's like
I'm going to
that's like
refer to myself as A Black for now on. When someone asks me what race am I'm going to say I'm A Black. You know,
what
I'm not asking you what you're not. I hate that when you ask someone, "What do you believe in?" Oh, I'm an atheist. No, no, that's what you don't believe in. What do you believe in?
yeah, but they don't believe in atheism. They believe in not well, I would say they don't even believe in atheism, obviously, because that's kind of right that like not to the point of like just yeah, it's kind of like it's like a Canadian slang. It's like atheist, like Fonzie. It's like a
Hey, what's going on? Hey, I like that. That's funny, Brandon. That's good. Use that.
atheist. Book here on the Dead Sea Scrolls actually.
Oh, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay.
Well, there's millions of books on, but I just try to figure each one out to read them because yeah, I know atheists always pretend like they're more skeptical than anybody else is, right? So I try to see if I can do just as their good as work and try to
You're trying to
go
do the
with their
skeptical thing.
yeah, go with their assumptions on everything pretty much and see if it actually works. Like trying to like frame it as the opposite instead of saying things can actually be more than just material, physical, and all that, right? And then going with like pretending, and then when they have our assumptions, I go around with that and try to like get rid of that and then put it back into place because it's been switched like obviously because how can they operate with all their views and all that when they can't have with their own assumptions,
Reuven
right? Like
says, for the record, the term atheist was originally used largely to describe Christians for not believing. Yeah, I hear you. I looked up the definition of atheist once, and it said that the archaic meaning was a wicked person, someone who's wicked. I like that definition.
it's like the wicked person. It's like I don't like being called a wicked person. I'm an atheist, and it's like the atheist. I
Then
don't like being
you
called
have some of these people that don't like the definition. Oh, you can't. You ever run into these
yeah,
people, Brandon, where they go, "Oh, you're going by the definition. You can't do
yeah.
that." It's like,
No,
what
but
the
like
fuck am I
bionic
supposed to
plants
go
and all
by?
that shit. Yeah. And like a lot of the like the lack of belief in gods, right? Like I talked to the Brexter or whatever, and he said a lot of the same shit. So I try to reverse the history, you know, like actually of the things, and I try to make it go like that. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like
How
kind
you
of
doing,
background.
Cerberus?
Oh, not too bad.
We're just complaining about how you can just slap an A before a word and it just means the opposite, you know? You know, like atheist, for an example. So from now on, Cerberus, when you ask me what am I, I'm gonna say I'm A black. I'm without black. So
It's misotheism actually. It's more than atheism because it's ace. It's like angry theist pretty much. Like that's what it means,
that's what
right?
they are. They're very angry, aren't they?
It's like misotheist.
A hole, yeah, without hole, yeah, a hole. I'm without.
Isn't it dumb when they try to do like when they actually admit this and they have like hangouts where it's like
When someone Brandon,
Yeah.
from now on, when someone asks me what's my height, I'm gonna say I'm A short. That's what I'm gonna describe myself as.
He's like, I'm a I'm a non-short, right? He's like, I'm a non-short religion. He's like, really, it is.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm non-tall.
Yeah.
People.
So what's for the what's on the agenda, Cerberus? Any plans?
Since I'm still injured and I'm on medication.
Oh, that's right.
My goal is to be as fat and lazy as possible.
Okay. All
for
right.
a little while, anyway.
That sounds good. For those who don't know, it's fucking white iron, hot, smelting lava, like fucking what, poured on your foot or something?
It was rebar, but yeah.
Reverb, yeah.
It's really itchy, actually.
Yeah, is there anything you could do for it? Itchiness?
Not without like taking the bandage off and putting a new one on every time I want to do anything to it.
Yeah. A lot of work. Burns aren't fun, man. I got 3rd-degree burns on my leg once. It was hateful.
Ouch.
Yeah, every time ouch. Every time I try to stand up, it would be excruciating pain.
Nadia, are you in heaven?
No. More like hell.
She got raptured. She's one of the elect.
Is hell that white?
Well, for me it is.
On my screen, I just see you, and it's just like blaring white all around you.
Yeah, it looks like you're going through a tunnel or something, like a white tunnel to the like heaven to the other side or something. Oh, now the video's gone. Oh, there it is. Okay, now it's back. Oh, Benny's back. How you doing, Benny?
Only one person has video, so I have no idea.
Okay.
Only one other person has video, so I have no idea if my connection died or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I try to keep my video off. It's not like anyone's
Why?
gonna want to see me anyway. We usually chatty in here. Everyone's awful quiet in here. Rob's usually screaming and carrying on, and he's sitting back relaxing today.
I was just keeping you guys guessing. The whole
Okay.
game. So, hello, Benny. Has Benny been popping along, has he?
Yeah, Benny's been popping along, yeah.
Yeah, he's a real treat, Benny. Benny the gangster.
Yeah, Benny's Romanian. Don't let him fool you.
No.
I've been trying to be nicer lately. I've been taking medication for my, trying to, they got the straight jacket on me. I'm tied down to my chair.
Yeah.
So.
Try meditation.
Yeah, meditation probably do a lot better for me than chemicals, huh?
I agree. Yes. I think so.
Oh, I just remembered. I was going to tell you guys. We got a alert and at the fire department from the state police. Apparently, there's a nationwide epidemic of people like melting and gluing razor blades to playground equipment. So
what the fuck?
Yeah, before you let your kids play on playground equipment, check it and make them wear shoes while they're in the sand.
We got some really sick people in the world. Seriously. I mean, it's just like nothing surprises me anymore. Like the depravity people are, the lengths they will go to be like assholes. Yeah, I mean, serious. Am I wrong? I mean, what has to be wrong with a person to do that?
I'm not sure. I mean, my psychology education is limited to just a few entry courses, so.
But I didn't mean break him down. So I'm not like CSI over here. I'm just saying, what's your personal opinion? Maybe Wolf King can give us the lowdown. What's your opinion, Wolf King?
My opinion on what?
People being sick fucks.
Let's see. Okay, let me give an example about this. Recently there was a recent case of it's not so recent anymore. It's sort of like a couple weeks back. Two 12-year-old girls were basically in Wisconsin. They were booked for stabbing their friend in order to impress Slender Man. So. With regard to why people do sick things, it's really a matter of. I know people don't want to hear this, but it's honestly.
Preach it. I want to hear it.
It's really a matter of like we need to address the issue of mental illness because we're hearing this go on like all the time. Like there's that other issue with Elliot Rodgers. You probably hear about this. That thing that happened in Santa Barbara. He didn't want to deal with the fact that people didn't treat him like the way he looked at himself. He thought he was the Ubermensch or something along to that effect. And he was going to punish girls because he didn't feel like they were giving him the respect that he deserved or like the attention that he deserved. It's really a matter of people getting these weird type of ideas on a very subjective level in their minds. And without if they don't like try to communicate that in a positive way with others, to where they can healthfully like build up from to a realistic standpoint to where they can actually live a happy life. They just do like insane actions. They will become violent and they will harm others.
Yeah, so you're right, mate. It's exactly that, and it's ego. Ego is the bottom line premise. So it's the ego mind that's sort of left unchecked, and the problem is in society when you get someone that sort of starts to behave in that way, people tend to not want to engage them. So in other words, they don't want to stand up and say, hey, pull yourself together. You're thinking the wrong thoughts and challenging them in a really strong way. And so what happens
Wouldn't you say, Rob, though, that a lot of people encourage that sort of behavior, though, Rob? They don't really. You're saying people challenge them, but in my case, I feel like people promote that. They promote that type of behavior more than.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying, mate, is that those behaviours, because people are afraid for their own well-being, they don't challenge those extreme behaviours. And I don't think society does a good job of challenging it either, really, personally. So I'm saying that the behaviour doesn't get checked checked. I was just laughing at Benny. The behaviour doesn't get challenged strongly enough. So, are you familiar with that show, The Super Nanny, or World's Strictest Parents?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically, the reason that they get a good outcome with the kids that are playing up is that the two parents, they educate the two parents to hold the same values in front of the child. So when the child is throwing a tantrum, or which is basically feeding, you know, it is the ego paradigm that's playing out even in kids, because it's pretty much part of a primitive survival mechanism. When two parents actually stand up to that behaviour and just in a very strong but encouraging way stop the child from behaving like that, you get a really great turnaround and the whole family dynamic improves. But if you get parents that operate, you know, one plays at softball and the other hardball, well, then the kids play against the parent, and then the behaviour goes on unchecked, because the kid can go back to the softer parent and always sort of get, you know, almost a blessing for the behaviour, if you like. And so, to me, that's probably, I'm expressing it crudely, but I'm pretty sure that's the problem.
You're saying we got to rear our children a little better. I hear you. I agree.
Well, it's not so much better. I think that it's not even the children that are the issue. I think the problem's in parenting. I think that as parents, and I know it was my experience, we come in without a good guidebook and without, or even if we do get guidance, we tend as young adults say, well, piss off, no, I know better. But in my circumstances, I didn't know better. And myself, I sort of was the harsher disciplinarian. Like, I held my ground on the issues that I felt were important, but my wife sort of took a bit of a softer line, thinking, you know, I'll wear them down in the long term. And I think that the kids played against that. That's my experience anyway. And I think it's important to both parents actually to send a very, you know, the same message to the child, so the child knows that when the parents say, well, nah, that's not a good thing for you to behave that way, then I think you get a better family outcome. And that's basically, as far as I can tell, that was the premise of the Super Nanny series. She'd always go in, and the first thing she'd do is get the parents to have a good hard look at themselves and then get them both on the same page. So I think it's pretty true. And it's simple, you know, it's not complicated. You're quite like... Hey, what's that hanging out the mouth there, Benny? Is that me sticking my tongue out? I seen it, a tongue. Oh, very good, Benny. Very, very... You must have been bored up. Were you a spoilt child, Benny?
Benny's from Romania. They don't really have drinking water.
Hey, Benny, why'd you call me the N-word on Real Empiricism Part 2?
He's a shit stirrer. Just ignore him. Don't give in to his games, mate. I didn't. Now, that's the other thing. That's the other signature of an ego. People tell fibs. Oh, see, I only call black people the N-word. Well, Benny, you shouldn't, right?
Oh, okay. Just good to know. I was curious, you know.
Yeah, Benny's a shit stirrer, mate.
Yeah.
You just ignore his shit stirring. It means nothing. Unless you give it wings.
So, Wolf, what's your theological position?
My theological position regarding what specifically?
You specifically.
Well, I don't really think I have a theological position, to be honest with you. You know, my view is regularly is non-theistic. You know, I for me, I look at reality objectively, and I see it as enough. Um, you know, for me, the universe exists. You could learn something about it, and rational explanations do exist for the elements of the world that we inhabit. But you know, that at the same time, you know, as we learn more about the world through science, reason, and our sensory experience, that doesn't rob us of you know the poetic magic that is intrinsic within the world, like seeing patterns of self similarity within like fractals and patterns of nature or in art, or or giving like a sense of wonder at looking at reality and seeing that it's enough, like celebrating our place in the cosmos and the cosmos.
Do you believe that there's a possibility that there's a creator? And my second part of the question would be: is there any sort of theological book, or do you hear to, or anything like that? That's what I was really getting at.
Oh, okay. But okay, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it in a reverse order. I'll deal with it in a reverse order. Okay. Well, okay. Religions typically, you know, religions, particularly I'll just use the Abrahamic ones for an example. They, you know, they all have a specific holy book that they claim has absolute knowledge of the universe. I don't think that's possible. I don't think you could get like all knowledge in a single book. I think that's a bit of an extraordinary claim that really should be backed up. But for me, I don't have a particular singular book. I have like a library, and a deity existing. I don't necessarily believe in a personal god, so I really don't think that is the case. Like for me, I just deal with like the reality as is. Hmm?
What about a non-personal deity?
Well, I have flirted with pantheism, so I wouldn't classify myself as a pantheist, but you know I you know I kind of have those leanings, you know, because you know I just love I kind of enjoy that specific philosophy.
Can someone explain pantheism again?
Basically, the universe is divine or like a god.
Got it. Okay, I understand.
So
And
it's sort of like sexed up atheism. So
yeah, okay, yeah, and that's probably pretty close. And Wolf, just an acknowledgement. You really got a very good grasp on things. I think you're pretty much spot on. Well, from my observation. So I'm just saying I agree. And I just wanted to acknowledge Benny. Benny was a good wolf then, because what he did, he apologised for using the N word. So me personally, anyone that makes an apology and then sticks to it, Benny. So you can't just make it and then go off and call someone else. Yeah, that's right. But I'm acknowledging you, mate. I'm just saying that's a good thing that you apologise, because you shouldn't do that. So just acknowledging that. That was all. Yeah, Wolf. Yeah. So good observation. So then, but it always leaves us with this question: what is this thing called God? And that, I guess, is the puzzle. But I'm not sure that we need to get hung up on it. And you can define this thing by its characteristics. So I only attacked him because he attacked my friend. Well, he probably didn't mean it. He sounds like a nice fella. Bit of fun in the chat room.
you saying that about me or like what?
What's that? Sorry, mate.
Is he saying that about me or like what?
No, I didn't get that. Could you say it again?
I said, is he saying that about me or like what?
No, I still didn't get it. I'm sorry.
Okay. I said, is he saying that about me or like what?
Oh, you mean Benny?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he is, Benny. Now we can ask him. Benny, are you saying that that Wolf attacked your friend?
I wouldn't say it was an attack. I think it was like probably a criticism.
Yeah, Benny, was it a criticism? Yeah, okay, good. So take his apology, Wolf, and move on. And then next time he's a racist, we'll jump on him.
Okay, yeah, I accept your apology, Benny. Thank you.
Jesus. And half right and half wrong. Yeah, so, Wolf, if you had to describe this thing called God, what characteristics would you give it? Or sorry, how does it play out in the world? Like, what are the things that lead you to describe the mystery, or sorry, accept the mystery?
Well, I think the term God, honestly, well, it means it's important to. Hmm?
I was just going to say the term God makes it hard, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I mean, like the term God means a lot to a lot of people, but for me specifically, it's like it is a term that is so that is filled with so much baggage that it's like and it's completely vague that it really depends on ultimately who you're asking and who you're talking to. So I mean, for people who do have that connection with with the terminology like God is this, God is that. For me, I don't really give God like the word God a particular definition because it's not, for me it's not really it's not really like necessarily coherent. I don't really recognize how that term actually helps us. For the large part, there are three basic assumptions, like the universe exists and we can learn something about it, and and et cetera, et cetera. So, like we when we recognize how we're connected to like a cosmic mystery of an infinite universe, I feel like that's the more important thing we should worry about.
Yeah. So if you were to ask me what this thing called God is all about, so that there in that statement, I'm identifying it not as of any particular sex at all. I'm just saying that there's something that is, and then what are the characteristics of this something that is? They would be things like wisdom. Wisdom's a bit of a mystery how that functions, and the other virtues, courage, temperance, and justice. They're a bit mysterious in terms of their source or the precursor event that delivers them. And then there's phenomenon like tears of joy and joy and love themselves. There's sort of mysterious elements, or no one seems to get a decent enough common agreement on them. But yet
welcome to the room, John. How are you today?
I'm feeling much better, thank you for asking.
And how are you doing, Beckel? What's up, brother?
Hello.
Hey, John. Hey, Beck.
There you go.
So it's got characteristics, I think, and so do you get what I'm saying? So do you have a list of characteristics that you sort of say, well, I haven't got a better explanation, so I'll put them in this basket of the God thing?
I know this is gonna sound like a big strange. Well, I guess it wouldn't be strange necessarily because it's kind of going into the whole agnostic aspect of this. I can't really say I know. I mean, if there was let's use like a personal deity, like, because we could talk about we could describe. I think Sam Harris said it best in that whole debate, which I loved, the future of God question. And what I liked more interestingly about it was the fact that they had more religious moderates and like sort of like the religious newbies, so to speak, like Deepak Chopra and like that other lady. But going back to the main point, yeah, we could talk about you know, God is like pure consciousness or intrinsic with the laws of or synonymous with the laws of nature or physics. But we won't be talking about a God that that the rest of our neighbors believe. For them, God is essentially an invisible person who hears our prayers, who basically we could lean on in times of need, that has a plan for us, and you know will ultimately guide us into eternity. And out of this infinite universe, beyond many galaxies and planets and stars, there's one particular planet, was one particular species of Homo sapiens that he basically has his eye on favorite. So lucky us.
Put
But
the
if we're
definition of
gonna,
God in the chat. Huh? Oh, I said the definition of God in the chat. On Wikipedia, link to what God is.
Oh yeah.
God. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for that, Brandon. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to know. And but basically, the main point is it really depends. Like the whole definition, it really depends on, because religion is a very broad term, and it encompasses like aspects of theism, like on a grand scale with numbers, or aspects of how that God fits in with the physical world. And it really depends on who we're asking, and and what is because if it was synonymous with say energy or the universe, something like that, then I would probably say I would believe in that deity. But it would be so void of anything other than the stuff I'm already perceiving. You know, there wouldn't really be a discussion there. But it wouldn't make much sense to pray the law of gravity per se, which is
Yeah. So, hey, Johns, I saw that show that Shana was on, where Shana was being interviewed by a young lady, a good interviewer too. And Shana gave a very good explanation, I think. So this was the deist perspective. The only thing that I sort of felt seemed not quite right was this idea of a creator being... Oh, and the other thing she said about the afterlife scenario, how she didn't hold a position on it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but it was something that she aspired to, she'd like to see as an outcome. But all the rest of it seemed pretty spot on. So this deist stuff seems pretty close to the real story. I'm assuming, of course, that I know the real story. See, the thing that you guys, or I think that the story, and this is for Reuven, if I could take a bit of a land. Reuven, is he still here? Oh, there you are, Reuven. Yeah, Reuven, something dawned on me, and I was watching a show last night. It's called Bad Ink, I think. And basically what it is these people get crappy tattoos. They regret it, and it has quite an emotional... These tattoos have an emotional thing on them. And then what happens is they get them remasked, or another image pasted over the top. Well, I think that's a really good analogy for the religious story, because, and I'm going back to my book and my research, basically what happened was you had this underlying true story, and you can call it the Daoist philosophy, if you like. And it seems to, it's the common one, the one that lines up across the traditions, this effort to describe this God thing. And that's the true story, and it floats all the way through history. And then you get the Empire comes in, and then they put so with ink, what they do with this re-inking process is they take that, they don't remove that original image, they leave it intact, and then they paint over the top of it and make connections back to the true or the first image. And that's pretty much what I think the empires have done. And then they create the gods in the sky and all the rest of the crap that causes all the confusion. Do you understand, Ruben, what I'm trying to say? No.
I guess what you're trying to say, it's like a game of telephone. Have you ever played that?
No, I haven't, but I'm interested in hearing what it is.
A game of telephone is basically a game kids play where one kid tells one kid a sentence and then that kid goes on to tell another sentence to another kid.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, the sentence sounds kind of similar but also at the same time different. And that's what you're trying to say with religion, right? They kind of sound the same but sound different at the same time.
No, I wouldn't use that analogy. So that I know that as Chinese whispers, you know, where you get a ring of people in a circle, and by the time you get to the end, the story's completely changed. What I'm saying is that there's just one story which is a valid. So in the Bad Ink story, right, the bad story is the original one, and then they put a good one over the top, you know, and a new image. You know, it made me think of Illuminati for some reason. Or the birth of that story. But what I'm saying is that there's a true story that resides underneath like an undercurrent. And what these empires did is they came in over the top. They grabbed parts of that story and they remastered it and repainted it to service power and not the God form. I'm exhausted. All right, I'll shut up then. But anyway, that's what I was... Ruben, did you get that, maybe? No. Sort of, yeah.
Ruben needs a little time to process that.
Well, what it means when you're trying to research this stuff, it sort of helps with the research process, because what you can then do now is you can say, all right, well, what's, you know, like this, the common theme I'm hearing here is people seem to have a very good grasp of the experiential God story, right? So you can then say, well, what am I reading here? Or, all right, well, that belongs to the good story. And then if I've got something that's got magic in it or prophecy or anything of a fictional nature, well, then I can put it into another thing. And what that helps you do is then look across history and say, right, well, the story that I'm hearing here is the one that's been designed and crafted for power, or the story I'm hearing here is the true story about the God thing, the Daoist. And I'm using deism as a template, I suppose, because it's pretty close. And so you can sort of separate. Hey? What's that, Nadia? Oh, okay, audio. Yeah, I'm just saying it's a useful tool to analyse these, you know, all these stories, because there's a friggin' mountain of them.
I'd use them as a sacrifice.
What's that, mate? Deism. Okay, fair comment. Got it. And Nadia just used private messaging, which is cool, you know. I don't know whether you guys know this, but you can private message people in the room just by using the \question mark and the back in the chat window, and it gives you a listing of of some command line prompts that you can actually private message people. Look at you, Benny. Yeah, that's it, mate. Ruben.
Hey, Brother John, what's going on, man?
How you doing? How's everybody doing?
Hey there, John.
I'm doing all right, man.
What's up, John?
How you doing, Mr. John May?
I'm good. Well, thanks for helping me out the other day with those Sky Daddy lovers. I lost it there for a while.
Okay.
Dude, those guys are fucking. The Ghost is a fucking pre-sub dipshit, and Nephilim Free, he is notorious for fucking random creationist bullshit. When you deal with a professional bullshitter that you need, that has fucked with the likes of fucking the Amazing Atheist and fucking Thunderfoot, when we have to deal with someone on that level, then honestly, yeah, you gotta. I mean, I kind of was envious of you because you were drunk, so for you dealing with the bullshit sophistry that they were spewing out was fucking. Excuse my language. It was ludicrous, honestly. But yeah,
I had a good time. I had a good time doing it though.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna get a T-shirt that says "I love Sky Daddy." What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so. I love it. Do it.
Pretty cool shirt.
Hey, John, Black Boss, me Aussie mate.
Which John?
Which
There's too many Johns in the room.
All right. I'll be my brother John today.
Yeah, brother John. No, not brother John. It's Aussie John.
Yep.
Yeah, mate. I had a look at one of those things you gave me, and yeah, it was quite interesting, but not right, I don't think. And I think did you get the text I sent back? Did you get the text I sent back?
No. Which one did you watch? The Richie Carrier one?
Yeah, that dude.
What? That didn't convince you?
No.
Oh well, we're going to have to force you then, or force feed you. That's all.
No, you can't, mate.
You
you've got to. The only thing I'll accept is evidence. You've got to bring the evidence.
But he did. Okay. Evidence. Go and watch the other one. The other one I gave you. He's got the evidence, and he puts it up on the screen.
Yeah. No, but I'm still not convinced. I'm very, very, very confident that the Jesus story is real, and that. Yeah. Well, sorry, not the story. Remember, I said two stories going on. I'm very convinced that that there was a real guy called Jesus, and I'll tell you why I take that viewpoint. Right, the New Testament Gospels were written 73 AD or thereabouts, which is only about 40 years after this dude is supposed to have walked on the earth.
Yeah, well, that's a red flag straight away.
No, it's not, because you're talking about the Roman. Hang on, mate. You're talking about the Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire. So they've put this text out. Well, you've got to see it from, I suppose, my book's perspective. But they put this book out to a population that would have been aware, because it's only 40 years different. It's different than, like if you go back to the Persian corruptions and the ones that relate to the Book of Daniel, the person that they're talking about was 140 years. 140 years in the case of Isaiah earlier. So there's no way known that can be reliably challenged in the public domain. And then if you come forward to the Book of Daniel's, well, there's about a 400-year gap. So the storyteller's safe from being challenged, but in the Jesus story, you've only got a gap of 30 to 40 years.
Oh, so 30 or 40 years. That's how old I am. That's a long time between drinks.
Well, it is, but you've still got people around that even like take a 20-year-old, they'd still be in the mix, right? A 20-year-old could understand information. It wouldn't have served the Romans to put out that story and use the false name. Not given that time, it wouldn't have served their agenda. Their agenda was to connect to the philosophy, right, and pinch that, because that's the thing that sustained it all these years, and put their own spin, and they did a lot of spinning. They tried to connect it to the whole. Of course they did.
And that's the whole point. That's the magic word, spin. and that's why there's so much. That's why there's plagiarism and all the rest of it.
Yes.
Well, okay, go and watch that other one, that one from Truth Surge, and he does it actually a little bit better, and he puts it up on the screen and all the rest of it, and then that's exactly right. Then you'll see the spin.
All right, mate. What I'll do, I will do that. I'll go and have a look at that guy, and then what I'll do in response, I'll give you my position. So I'll attack his argument if I find some flaw in it.
But make sure it's a good argument, because he's got. You know, don't come up with like he said this and he said that. At the end of the day, you've got to look at these people like, I don't go into libraries and read books. These guys do, and that's what they love doing. And they don't invent stories because they're going to make themselves look stupid.
Oh, well, ultimately, there's going to be a lot of freaking...
And don't worry, there's a lot of sky daddies out there that they're already making themselves look fucking stupid with their fucking ice bridges and fucking goodness knows what.
Yeah, you see...
Ice bridges.
Yeah.
That's right. The Gnostic is a cat. You know, he's not the sky... He doesn't back the sky daddy story. And just one other point... The other thing that makes me really confident about this guy's existence is actually when you read the Gospel of Thomas and you read the sayings, they're a valid philosophy. They just are. They're factually valid.
Well, bullshit's valid. Yeah, of course it is. All bullshit's real. All bullshit's real.
No, mate. What I said was the Gospel of Thomas. So there's 114 specific sayings in the Gospel of Thomas. If you read them, and assuming that you've got a grip on, like maybe a deist would have a fairly good grip. If you had a good grip on this spiritual condition, then you'll find that once you work out what he's saying, that it maps very reliably to, the true story. And there's no precursor to those sayings. I mean, you might be able to connect loosely to other interpretations, but you'll never find the words. You'll never find the words any earlier than this Jesus dude.
Hey, Jesus wasn't a unique name. It's like fucking John. That. It's not like I wish it was, because we wouldn't have this problem today.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Who knows? Shit, they may have renamed the real. No, they wouldn't have renamed it. I'll recant that. They wouldn't have renamed the guy because it wouldn't have sold as well. That's what I'm saying. There's only a 30-year gap. They wouldn't have been able to pull it off.
Fuck, 30 years. Fucking, I've had enough now.
Hey, what's that?
30 years is a long time. If you asked me, do you remember when you were in grade 1, 2, 3? Yeah, I remember a couple of days here and there, but don't tell me whole fucking... I can't even remember, when all the days between fucking 2 and 3. It's just not possible.
John, that's why I said a 20-year-old, right? A 20-year-old would have been 50 or 60, right? Now, a 20-year-old would have remembered stories going around in his Jewish community if he survived the attack. And there must have been some survivors, I take it, that attack on Jerusalem. Or maybe there weren't, who knows. But they'd still remember the stories about this Jesus dude. You've got to remember, he established 7 churches up in Asia Minor, so he did have a decent impact. So there would have been a fairly decent population that would have been aware of this dude that caused this philosophical impact that threatened the Pharisees. It makes common sense.
The way I see it, and I've said this story, and I haven't said it to you, he's a dude running around doing all these fucking miracles, right?
No miracles, no.
Oh, he's fucking healing the blind, and he's feeding 5,000 people, and he's doing all this fucking shit. In the Bible, that's what it says.
Yeah, John, Rob's Jesus is Jesus minus the miracles.
Correct.
Oh, okay, so the Bible's bullshit.
Yes.
Hey, you did it! Yay!
I'm curious, what evidence do you have of that?
What, my position?
Yes.
I wrote a book. Do you want a copy for free?
I'll be right back.
Oh, 1 second, hold on. Gotta stop this ringing. Come on.
Yeah, I've got to fucking stop the voices in my head.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was your response?
I wrote a book.
Okay, I read a lot of books too.
Yeah, but no, I wrote one.
Oh, you
I
wrote
wrote-
one. There's a lot of books written about the Bible.
Yeah, but mine's going to be right, I think.
Ah, I see. So yours surpasses all the others.
Trying to start up another cult.
There's a link, mate, if you want to go and have a look through it for free. You could challenge the premise. I'm happy to argue with anyone.
Yeah, but you're not gonna. Yeah, but you're gonna say you're always right.
No. If you prove me wrong, I will acknowledge it. But it's.
Oh yeah.
No, seriously, I will. But you'll have to bring some evidence. I won't take your opinion. You'll have to come up with a better storyline or a better explanation than what I've offered. And my explanation runs 900 years, mate, and I think it holds pretty true.
Yeah,
no miracles needed. It explains why prophecies were fake. Hey?
Yeah, I had a dream. I have dreams. They all come true.
No, but I've got references. They're not just things in my head. They're things in other people's heads, and they're in on the record. I'm just the storyteller. I'm trying to connect the dots.
Yeah, they've been trying to do that with the Bible, and now we've got all these tap dancers on our hands and fucking sugar coating.
Yeah, well, you see, and from our last discussion, mate, I'm dead against the Bible, but here's the way I look at it. It's like I don't blame a believer, or wouldn't. The issue for me is ego. Fundamentally, that's the bottom line problem, and the societal form of ego is empire. So what I'm saying is that the bloody empires, through history, starting with Cyrus the Great, wrote the second story, and it's shaped to service power. Same with Islam, it's the same story. It's just been designed to serve power. It's simple. It's not complex, and maybe it's the simplicity that people can't get their head around. They say, it can't be that bloody easy, but it is. These guys they make up fairy stories that you can't challenge or prove otherwise, and then they just use it to their own ends to sustain empires.
Yeah, and if you don't believe him, you get your fucking head chopped off.
Well, that's right, mate. They're the guys in power. They've got all the money, and they own the libraries, so they can do whatever they friggin' like. Well, they have been up till now.
Well, they've got libraries in Islam.
Hey?
Have they got fucking libraries in the Middle East?
No, what I'm saying is that the empires were in control.
I would have thought they all been bombed.
Well,
they have been, John.
Yeah, well, think of the Library of Alexandria, and think of, wow, why did they get rid of such a treasure? Well, maybe the reason was they were just covering up because it, would expose.
No,
maybe.
It's like fucking Adolf Hitler. What he didn't like, he fucking burnt.
That's right. Well, the thing is, who's in charge through?
I'm always up for a good Burke burning myself, personally.
Yeah.
I know which one I know which one you got your eye on.
I hope it's not mine. No, burn the Bible and the bloody Quran first.
Yours is on the internet. We can't burn it. You're safe.
Yeah, that's right. Good. I appreciate that. But I'm up for a book burning. I reckon we should burn the Bible and the Quran. I don't think we need them. Or at least censor them. Mark the parts that are bullshit, just put a big red line.
Fuck. So the first fucking page is fucked.
Oh, no, the Torah, you've got to be a bit more respectful because that if you accept the myth, right, that they used myth in the old days, then you should just go through it and have a decent look at it with the perspective that, right, Noah is myth, and, Adam and Eve is myth, and then try and work out what the hell they're trying to say. So, I think, and that's sort of respectful, and that's really quite useful because then it allows room for the Christian, you know, beyond the, you know, getting rid of the bullshit.
I think, yeah, he's tearing one up. He started already.
See, the people at the bottom, the people aren't the problem. It's the empire. And you've got to respect the people, you know.
Empires are made of people.
Yes, but they're the ones with the big houses, and you know, taking the land.
I would love to have a nice big house, huh? Oof. What do I do to join the empire?
You've got to kill yourself and go to heaven. Get a mansion.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Can I interject here? Can I interject?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thanks. Give me a moment. Veckel's back. And Rob, Veckel had a question for you earlier, and now before you wanted your proof for your your version of Jesus, and my contention's always been with you, Rob, that you say you want to throw out the Bible, but yet you need parts of the Gospels to even validate the Gospel of Thomas. Okay, so that's been my issue with you, but. You have a theist in the room who wants he asks you for proof of your Gnostic Jesus. I mean, how do you prove without
very interested in that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Beckel, did you want to add something before you?
No. I was just agreeing with you. I would like to hear his explanation.
Okay, so here it is. How do we validate Jesus, right? Well, the way I did it was I first read the Gospel of Thomas. So I wanted to see, and all that is 114 sayings, and it's allegedly said by a dude called Jesus, right? So I'm reading through them, and I'm looking at them not from a historical perspective, but from a philosophical point of view. And I'm finding that it opens with the line that says, whoever can interpret these sayings will lose the taste of death. So there's a black and white statement that can be verifiably, well, it can be tested, right? So what he's specifically saying, if you read the whole 114 sayings and you can work out what their meaning is, you will lose the taste of death. So you'd think, well, shit, that's a bit of a tall promise. But as it turns out, it's actually 100% true. How can I say that? Well, if we go back to, well, I know in my own personal experience that I think that that's been the impact on me. But putting that aside, if we go to Plato, we find that Plato 400 years earlier, and look at his Republic, he actually said exactly the same thing. He said that the wise philosophers, or the philosopher kings or his lovers of wisdom, people that fitted that profile, so it's not just one person, but he's saying a class of people that fit this profile, they don't have this fear of death or preoccupation with it. That's not to say that if someone walks up to them with a gun, then they're not going to, crap their pants or anything, but it's to say that they just don't fear that concept. They'll talk about it, won't be shaken by the idea, and so I tested people in my community circle that I thought met the classification of virtuous folk, and it's true. It rang out true that they really weren't preoccupied, and I could tell that they were being genuine because I knew these people. I'd known most of my life. So then you go through all of the sayings, and the more time you spend with them, the more impressive they are. There's just these tiny little bloody one-sentence sayings, and they just say volumes. So I thought, well, that's pretty convincing. So all of a sudden, we've got this guy. He's saying stuff. It's valid. I tried to find any precedent for those sayings, and I haven't been able to find any. I thought I'd stumbled across one when there was the Gospel of the Hebrews, which is classed as apocryphal. It actually uses a very important saying, the second saying, and I thought, oh shit, I'm onto something here. This is evidence that there's a precursor to the stuff. So Jesus is reporting a handed down story, but it turns out that the book of Hebrews is a later event than the Gospel of Thomas. So I'm still unable at this point to find any earlier writings that are those words. Now, there's the philosophical aspect. Now, if you want to challenge that, I've written a piece on my website, so I'll give you the link to that, and you can go and have a look at that and try and challenge me on that point. But then there's the historical perspective, right? I cannot imagine an entity with the scale of the Empire of Rome writing stuff
With the
so
what of
close.
Empire Room?
Sorry, say again.
What'd you say? You said you can't. What was that about the what of Rome?
All right. I cannot imagine an empire of the scale of the Roman Empire as it was in those days, right? So I'm talking 70 AD. This is the time after they've gone down and wiped out the Essene community, because I say that Jesus was the righteous teacher of the Essenes that lived at Qumran. That was my conclusion. But I'm saying that how could an empire of the scale of the Roman Empire used a wrong name within a period of 30 to 40 years after the guy, because the guy is supposed to have died 33 to 36, somewhere around then. How could they be putting up a story only 35 years or so down the track, 36 or whatever, down the track, and used his name and got away with it? Wouldn't have they been challenged from all quarters? And, you know, the people that they're trying to con with this stuff, because they are trying to con the Jewish community at this stage and own their religion, just like the Persians did to the, you know, and there's this common thread too. If you go back to the book of Isaiah, you know,
My issue
doesn't make any sense at all.
My issue with people who resort to arguments like we see things that look similar that predate Christianity. To me, I've always had a problem with that type of argumentation. It's almost as if it's an argument from ignorance, because just because we see things that look similar, that doesn't mean one thing came from another, or something was plagiarized, or something even inspired this other thing. I mean, it could just simply be that these are realities that both cultures and both worldviews are acknowledging, but that doesn't mean that one got something else from the other.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying. I agree with that. Right?
Yeah.
I'll explain why I agree with it, right? Because I like to offer an explanation. I don't like to just say something and then just walk on to the next topic. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, because what you then do is help me, redress perhaps some weaknesses. Because what's happening in the next 6 weeks is I actually go through some interviews in the American market. That's what I paid for. So. Mm-hmm. This really helps me promote the book when I get onto these radio and that interviews. So anyway, what I did, I actually, and the boys here are sick of me saying it. Hey, hang on, I've just got to pick up Benny. Is Benny here? That's not nice with the swastika, right? You're feeding your evil wolf. Yeah, that's right. Now, you need to apologise to Nadia. Stop being an arsehole. It's not a scar. You're being an arsehole. All right, so anyway, now, what I observed, sorry, the two wolf story, right? The guy's hated here because I say it ad nauseum, but basically what that tells us about the human condition is that there's an ego element that's intrinsic to our nature, and also there's a God element that's intrinsic to our nature. And I can give you an explanation for that, but just to skip past that, accept that for now. When you go back, and with that in your mind, and you go back and look at history, what you see is some repeating patterns of behaviour. So I guess I am saying in one way they are all connected at the end of the day, but the repeating patterns of behaviour were this. So if you look at the book of Isaiah quite carefully, and you look at the scholarship and And you also look at the takeover by the Persians of Babylon and what happened there and how they used religious propaganda. What you end up seeing is you can clearly start to see what these empires were doing with the religious story. What they were doing was creating a wrapper around it to service power. And the way that they did it, so in the days of the Persians, you've got the Book of Kings, they would retell the historic story to lay a foundation in history, right? And in doing that, there would be fraudulent mishaps. So in the Book of Kings, they left out a battle called the Battle of Karkar, which is a historical event that relates to the Syrians fighting with 12 tribes. Just drove Benny out of the room. So you've got this story about a historical story of a battle between the Assyrians and 12 communities, not necessarily Jewish. And then when you get to the Bible, then you've got this question mark around 10 missing tribes. So you start to see this fracturing from history to the biblical version. But what they were doing is they were retelling or repainting in the Book of Kings the story of history. And then from that, then they would retell in propaganda the relationship that the people had with this god entity. And in doing that, they would put the emperor of the day in the story, right? And he had a favourable relationship with the gods. And if you look forward in time, the Romans were doing that as well. This is what these bloody emperors did. And the reason that they did that is that they didn't want to lose numbers. Losing numbers, so it wasn't a smart move to go in and take over a community and then just kill them all, because you're about building empire, so you wanted to hold your numbers, right? So when you look at the book of Isaiah with that in mind, you can see that you can clearly see the con game that was going on. Same thing happens book of Daniel, same sort of story, same pattern. The book of Enoch was a retelling of the history, and then Daniel was the retelling of the connections between the leaders of the day and the god. And it yeah.
I'm curious, where's the con game? Where'd you say the con game was?
Well, the con game is this. What they do is they create... So if we take the book of Isaiah, it's pretty straightforward. You get Yahweh, who happens to be on the Canaanite list. All right, it's a bit dodgy, but he's still on the list. This god Yahweh is promoted to sit above a dome in the image of an emperor, right?
Okay.
And this happens in the second part of Isaiah, where they're... So the first part of Isaiah is about guilt on an innocent population that actually had been brutalized. This is the Jewish population. They've been brutalized by these Assyrians and Babylonians over time. So they're God's cast as an angry God who persecutes people, and that's how come the Assyrians and Babylonians persecute them. So they're explaining away the brutality that these empires did, and in that process they're casting this shadow of guilt on the people themselves. So that's part one. And when you shift into part two, you see them talk about comforting, and all of a sudden our hero of the day, Cyrus, emerges into the story, and we see God cast as a god that's enthroned, like an emperor, sitting on top of a dome, which is called the firmament, across an earth that's cast as a circle. And it's not a globe, it's the snow dome model of the world. And he's looking down on the little grasshoppers, keeping an eye on them. And what we see is Cyrus is cast as the great mate of this god, just like on the Cyrus cylinder. That's exactly the scam that they pulled with the Babylonians, and that's written for us. We've got a written record of that. And so what they're doing is the empire becomes God's agent. The empire and their priests, the Magi, become God's agents on earth. And the final trick is they then cast the rebuilding program, right? It's pretty obvious. G'day, mate. How you going? Long time no see, Joe.
All right. So it sounds to me like you're kind of going back to the you're kind of sitting the Bible, the events mentioned in the Bible, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it
Yeah.
sounds like you're comparing the events mentioned in the Bible to other historical sources that are out there that predate Christianity. I mean, that's generally
Well,
what you're doing, right? I mean, you're
what I'm
saying
doing,
are
what
you
I'm
saying
doing.
that the writer of Isaiah, when he describes God sitting on the throne, you're saying
Yeah.
that that was derived from something else, some other group of people that
Uh,
actually.
what I'm saying is this. Yeah, I think I understand your thing. So if you go and have a look at Jewish history, you'll find that archaeologists and Egyptologists have given up on a Egyptian exodus. Right? They don't buy that story as being valid because they can't find any evidence. Their conclusions are that, and again based on digs and the like, is that Judaism comes from the Canaanite tradition. And there's even Canaanite, although there's the one discrepancy I think is they couldn't find any pig bones in the settlement down in Jerusalem, but the architecture and all that seemed to have Canaanite connections, I think, if I'm not getting that stuff wrong. But basically, the end result is that it appears that the Canaanites might have been the precursor religion to Judaism. And if you look at that Canaanite religion, go and research that, you find that that's polytheistic. And that makes sense if you look at religions across the world, right? You know,
Can I interrupt you for a second, Rob?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I mean, you went on, and there's a
I
lot,
know,
a lot there that you've said, and I'm sure Becca wants to give it a consideration. But I like to know if he might have a follow-up question for you or something.
Yeah. Look, just jump in anytime.
Oh, okay.
I've got to learn to be patient with this
There
shit.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go, Vex. So just jump on him when you want.
But again, I'm just curious as to when you see things that look similar between two different things. How do you how can one person? I mean, I need you to help me out here because I need to know how do we determine just because two things have some similar qualities or something like that. How do we know that one thing actually came from the other or one thing inspired the other thing? And like for
Okay.
instance, you know, people can see my drawings on here on YouTube. Um, uh, but what's to say that another person somewhere in another country that none of you in this room has ever heard of, maybe they thought of the same type of ideas that I have in my cartoon, but yet
Yeah.
neither of us have ever seen each other. We've never heard each other. So
Yeah.
how can we know if this person is either experiencing the same thing that I'm experiencing, even though we never met each other, or
Yeah.
how do we know that I inspired him or he inspired me whatsoever?
Yeah.
How do you
Okay. I
do
understand.
that? Yeah.
Understand the question, and that's where that comes back to the actual Gospel of Thomas, the answer to that question, and those two wolves. It turns out that these innate instincts, survival strategies, right? One, survival of the self, which is the lead cause of the selfish behaviours in the human, and the survival of the herd, which is love thy neighbour, the lead cause of the neighbour passions and instincts. Those things are universal. That's who we are as humans. And there's also some interesting phenomena which I can't yet explain, but seems to be related to this concept of acacia and acacia field. And wisdom, right? Wisdom's universal. So there are universal elements. And don't forget, we live in the same context, the Earth. If I live in China, I'm still within the context of the environment of the Earth. So it would become no surprise when we're talking about authentic things about our reality that someone on the other side of the planet will behave in the same way, or you'll see patterns that are similar. If you take the Aztecs, for example, all right, everyone sort of wondered about, why the pyramids that we see over in Egypt and why the eagle claw warrior and all the rest of it. well, it turns out that there may be a connection because of the Carthaginians that might have landed in South America, and so you get a story gravitate that way, but outside that story, which is the bullshit story, sacrifice and all that, that's not the way of to live the human existence. Put that aside. If you can isolate that part of the story apart from the good stuff that's in these religions, that's where you'll find the common experience globally. And that's why these stories are the same, because they're talking about the same human condition. That's who we are.
Right.
Those two worthless humans. We just are.
Okay. So do you affirm that the Gospel of Thomas is more legitimate than the four Gospels? Is that what you're?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact,
Okay. Now let me ask you this then. I mean, how does your position, well, based on your position, how do you? What's your thoughts on the early church fathers then? And their opinions about the. I mean,
yes.
they don't really speak about it too much actually. The Gospel of Thomas.
Oh, of course. But here's you've got to understand what I deduced happened. So what I'm saying happened was that after the fall of Jerusalem, the Romans did like the Persians did. They created their own story. They took the underlying fabric of the true spiritual story. They then told their own atop of it, and that is the Gospels. So I'm actually saying, like Apple says, right, that the Romans, and I actually go one step further. I say that Roman Emperor Nerva was the lead architect for writing the New Testament synoptic Gospels, and what he used as his source was a collection of Jesus' sayings, and that validates the theory that was developed in the 1800s called Q-source, because Q-source says basically that the synoptic Gospels were based on a sayings list.
Okay, so all right, so let me just jump in real quick. So you're saying that after the fall of the temple in 70 AD, you said the Romans took their version of what story? Of the life of Jesus, or the fall of the temple?
What they took, and this is where I've got to be a little careful, because there's something I'm not sort of mentioning thus far. Paul, Saulus, right, was a Pharisee. So what the Romans did is they took the Pharisee effort to use the Jesus story to reclaim the lost sheep, if you like, bring them back to Judaism, because the Pharisees were traditionally good at that. And the Romans stepped in and they took the reins. So they took the Paul story and they took the Jesus story. What else did they pinch? Those were the fundamental building blocks, and then they weaved into it all the magic. So if you actually look at the 7 genuine letters of Paul, you won't find any mention of any miraculous Jesus other than the Pharisee traditions of resurrection and the Messiah.
Okay, so you're saying
until afterwards, yeah.
So you're saying that in this account of the true Jesus is found where, in the Book of Thomas?
Yes, correct. Those sayings are philosophically valid. They echo Plato. They echo the indigenous wisdoms. They echo anything authentic. Deism. They echo that. You know.
I'm kind of lost on something.
Yeah, I'm still a little. There's something just doesn't add up with that story.
Well, okay. Now, my understanding was that the early Christians, as there became more and more of them, became kind of a, well, maybe not a threat, but a problem for the Roman Empire, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why would the Roman Empire?
Yep, I can explain that.
With the Gospels and everything, which is just promoting the early Christians' cause.
Yeah, I can give you an explanation.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if
Yeah,
you
I'm an atheist, and it makes no sense. You know, I mean,
yeah,
why,
right, mate.
Yeah.
That's right.
you know,
Let
still,
me
why would they do that?
Okay. So hopefully I've got your question, but I know. So if you look at the Nerva story, right, a little bit closely, so Nerva is the emperor that took up. He became emperor after the end of the Flavian dynasty, right? But he was in the picture from Nero right through the reign of the Flavians until he became emperor outright himself. What we find is that this Nerva character, he was given two very prestigious awards, and you know they were at the level that they used to give to the soldiers that came back from war, you know, the triumphs or whatever. And the first one he gets occurs in an event called the Pisonian Inquiry. Now, if you actually look at the people that were charged, you'll find one really interesting name, and that interesting name is Julius Agrippa. Now, Julius Agrippa is Agrippa the Great son. Agrippa II, he was known as, I think. He's one of the guys that were charged in this inquiry, but he gets off. He doesn't sort of, he's not one of the ones that were executed. Now, that inquiry, Nero awarded Nerva, so Nerva must have been the lead sort of prosecutor or investigator.
How do you spell that name?
Nerva, Nerva. Now, what I deduced happened, and there's a whole shitload of history in the book that sort of leads up to this event, but what I deduced happened was that the Pharisees, right, and this is where Reuben, you've helped me out a lot too, because now there's, you know, if I could rewrite the bloody thing, I'd add a few more bits and pieces in, but Nerva, I think he uncovered a Pharisee strategy to undermine Rome's authority using this Christianity that Claudius and, well, it gets long-winded if I start that, but basically he's uncovered this plot, this Nerva, right? And it's that event, this Pisonian inquiry, that actually was the precursor to an attack on everything labelled as Christian, right? So I don't say that they're Christian at all. My view is that these are Essene communities that the real Jesus has fostered into being. Now, why are they a threat to Rome? Well, if you actually read the Gospel of Thomas and you isolate the 61 of the 114 sayings that are used in the Bible away from the other 53, what you get is you get this story about an inner God, an inner relationship, and you don't need any third party. That's massively threatening to the scams that these empires ran to keep people in order. And if that were public knowledge, I could see a revolt occurring, because people would then realise that they'd been taken a lend of and sort of almost brought into slavery by these empires. And you've got to remember, the people in the empire, they were the small number, they're not the big number. The big number is the population that was being conned by these religions. So those 53 Jesus Gnostic sayings are very, very telling. They talk about this inner personal, this inner living Father, and this personal relationship and this personal effort to understand it. And then when you work that shit out, you just don't need anybody else. You don't need to rely on priests and all of that.
That still sounds like a lot of conjecture to me. Let me read something to you and tell me what you think of it. Think of this.
Yeah.
It says, okay, the case for a 2nd century date for Thomas. So this source here I'm looking at is suggesting that the Gospel of Thomas was probably dated around the 2nd century. 2nd century. So which is obviously way after the death of Christ. Anyway, let's see here.
Yeah, I can answer that. If you actually look up, and people criticise me for using Wikipedia, but it's just the fastest way to go. And Wikipedia,
Right.
if you look further, it actually has
Wait.
resources.
Right, but I wasn't done yet. But this is what I wanted to read to you. Just one paragraph. It says, first, the
Oh,
Gospel of Thomas shows dependence on the first century New Testament writings, even parts of the Gospel of Mark that were edited by Matthew and Luke. Craig Evans notes that the Gospel of Thomas quotes or alludes to more than half of the New Testament writings, including Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts, Romans 1 and 2. Corinthians, all the epistles and stuff. So this dependence indicates that the Gospel of Thomas was probably written sometime in the 2nd century, especially since its references include later century works such as the Gospel of John and Revelation. Evans notes, I am now aware of a Christian writing prior to AD 150 that references this much of the New Testament. For example, epistles of Ignatius were written about AD 110, do not quote half as much material as Thomas does.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
no,
much more, but
like it. But that's only one person's view, and what you'll find if you actually look at the broader scholarship, you've got two camps. You've got an early camp and a late camp. The early camp will place the Gospel of Thomas as early as 40 AD, and the late camp will go as late as 140 AD. So that's sort of the time range that you're talking about within the thing.
okay.
But here's where I'll get labelled for conspiracy. But I think this is. So I'm working on a second book now, and it's called, what is this thing called? Capitalise the D in brackets, devil, or evil rather. That's Ego Explained. Now let's talk peace. And what I'm doing, I'm following the Catholic religion and the Persian, the Persian or Pharisee religion through to modernity, and it seems to me, from what I can read, there's a lot of effort to protect the biblical story. So you can call them apologists, right? And then there's other people that sit outside that, and they hold different views. So there are definitely two camps of views.
Yeah.
But here's my thinking. When you look at the Gospel of Thomas and the ordering of it, and the ordering of it's very important, right? It does have, and in the book I address the first 10, right? They fit together like a hand in a glove, yet certain parts of them, or of those 10, appear in the Bible and others don't. And you can see if you understand the threat that the 53 that were excluded from the Bible would have posed to even Rome, because you've got to remember the Romans held or told their people that the empire had a special relationship with their God. So it was a massive threat to that sort of concept. And my conclusion was that was one of the main motivating forces for the Romans actually intervening so strongly. They couldn't afford to have that in a client kingdom's hands. They had to own it. So no, I hear the counter argument, but also too, I'll add, these bloody empires, these religions still exist, and I'm saying that the corruption still exists. And if that's true, and if the kings and queens of the world who have most of the economic resources, if that were true, then it's in their vested interest to sponsor and support the other side of the argument. So you're always going to have a well-resourced and willing population that will support the biblical tradition and try and shoot down anything that's going to, go against it. So,
yeah, I understand why some people would come to that conclusion. I mean, but obviously it doesn't really provide any substantial evidence for it. But
well, the keys.
I understand. I mean, that would be moving the goalposts. Yeah.
No, the keys.
It still sounds odd though. I'm still having a problem with this. It's like okay, Thomas and whatever he was teaching was more like Buddha would taught.
But it's not Thomas.
It's inside of you. There's no external, right?
Heavy. It's not Thomas. It's Jesus. No. Thomas is only the pen.
No. I'm going with the writer of the book. I'm not going with who he's talking about. I'm going about what the writer wrote. Sounds more like something about what Buddha would teach. That or the Hindus almost even. It's like the Godhead or
Yeah,
Godhood is
but that's the
inside.
true stuff. But that's the true stuff. That's the true human
Well,
story.
we don't really
But
know that though.
that wouldn't be a
You
threat
do,
to
though.
anybody.
You do. Yes, you do. You live it.
That wouldn't
You
be a
live
threat to
that
anybody
story.
though. Buddhists are
Sorry.
not a
No,
threat to anybody.
no, because
They're more laid back with their
there's
stuff.
scholars out there. Well, can you? I'm just curious. What arguments have you heard against the Gospel of Thomas then, and how can you validate that your position is true? Like, for instance, one of the things they say is that because it came out in the 2nd century, there's also strong evidence of 2nd century Syrian Christian influence by it. So that would prove that this was written way after the other Gospels.
So
I mean,
you're
yeah, well,
saying
that's what the source, other sources are saying.
Sorry, can I just get some clarity around? So your argument is saying that the Syrian. So can you just elaborate on that a little?
Yeah.
Just tell me.
Well, one of the other scholars would say that the Gospel of Thomas is not one of the many reasons why they say it's not authentic, or it hasn't been ever considered as canon, is because it was, well, apart from stuff in it that's contrary to what we see in the other 4 Gospels, there's strong evidence in it that seems to indicate that it was written or influenced by Syrian Christianity, which was probably recognized around the 2nd century BC. I mean,
Gotcha.
AD. I'm sorry, and
Gotcha.
so because of that, because of the material that's in the Gospel of Thomas, like I forget who was just saying it. It almost sounds like somebody.
No, it's okay, mate. It's okay. I got you drift. I understand it now. I just didn't
I
get.
was saying it sounds more like it's a Buddhist teaching, like where it's saying there's not God is not external or Christ is not external. It's inside. So it seemed like if everyone was Buddhist or in the Roman Empire, if this group of religious people came up and they were more like Buddhists, they would be no threat to the Roman Empire.
The other thing I would like to say,
I mean, that's kind of what I see. But you have the
Oh,
Christians.
hang on, guys. You're getting a little bit ahead. Can I just answer the Syrian question first, and then go on to the Buddhist one, and then if you could come back and hit me with another question.
All right,
One of the problems I've found in these debates is we can get a little bit ahead of ourselves, and it's better to try and deal with one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And for me, I struggle anyway, bloody keeping multiple ideas in my head. Anyway, so the Syrian question, right? Here's my counter to that, right? Why is it not reasonable to say that actually the Gospel of Thomas was the precursor and the Syrian stuff borrowed from that?
Well, that's a little bit going off the main question though, because what we're trying to figure out is whether or not the Gospel of Thomas is authentic and more accurate than the 4 Gospels that we have today. So what you're saying, but now you're asking a different question: is why could it not be the other way around? Why could it not the Gospel of Thomas have inspired the Syrian Christianity?
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Now, also, I'll add to that, and I hold this, and I mean, anyone here can validate my challenge. My challenge is, and oh shit, I forgot to put that link there, so I'll put it up there in case anyone wants to take it on. But I'm saying that anyone that read the Gospel of Thomas sayings would be able to personally validate their accuracy based on assuming that they've got enough life experience to recognise what he's banging on about. And so if that's true, if it turns out that the Gospel of Thomas is indeed, as I claim, a valid philosophical observation of the human condition, then it then goes on further to say that all that's happened with this Jesus character, and you've got to remember there's another element I'm probably skipping over. The Essene community practice what's called the Nazarite tradition. Go and check out, too muddy for me. But anyway, so so that's the link to my, where I divide the two sets of sayings in the two groups, and then I give my analysis. Why is it not reasonable to assume that Jesus is, well, sorry, hang on, the Nazarite, the guys at Essene community practice the Nazarite tradition, which comes from the Old Torah, which is pre-Babylon. So why is it not reasonable to think that that particular tradition understood the human condition? That's all they're practicing. He's only writing about his own observation using his own language of that particular tradition. It's the same thing that we see in Buddhism, and we see it in the Hindu traditions. They're all observing the same human phenomena, because that's what humans are. So they're all just telling the same story. Why is that not a reasonable conclusion?
I don't have a problem with that. That would be a good argument against people who are saying, who are trying to use the argument of parallelism, which is what I was bringing up before. I mean, when we talk about things like, for instance, I don't want to go off on a tangent here. We talk about the things like, the worldwide flood. One of the first arguments we hear from non-believers is that, Christianity got the story, from this culture and this culture. But I can easily turn around and say, well, why is it just because they all talk about the same thing? Why can't it not be a recording of something that actually did happen, but just told from a different perspective? So I understand why you say that. However, if you have, let me read this other thing here. It says here, the Gospel of Thomas also shows evidence of having been influenced by Syrian Christianity, which, as far as scholars can tell, did not exist as a movement until the 2nd century AD. So there are a number of reasons why Thomas shows this Syrian influence. First, Thomas appears to have been influenced by Tatian's Diatessaron, whatever his name is, through the four.
I'm with you. I got you, Drift. All right, okay. I've got an answer for that as well.
Okay.
What's your... If you really dig deep and you actually look at the story, what you find some really interesting things, right? So the Book of Revelations, it talks about an episode in the third woe, right? So it's, it's sort of supposed to be spooky stuff, but it's not. It's just all bullshit made up. But it talks about a third woe where horses get blood up to their nostrils. Well, if you go across to the Talmud record, in 136 AD, in the third of three so-called Jewish wars, which might have been just the Romans smacking the bejesus out of the Jewish folk, but in this third war at Beitar or somewhere like that, but anyway, there's an episode where the Romans herd the people outside the city, and then they start slaughtering them, and there was so much blood that it rose up to the nostrils of the horses. So you got the same sort of story, but coming from the Talmud, which would have probably emanated out of possibly Babylon. So it's an independent source, but they're saying they're both the same thing. So when I saw that, I thought, oh shit, I know what's going on here. That Book of Revelations is a story of events, some historical events leading up to and concluding around 136 AD. But where that's really interesting is that's the exact timing that a guy called Valentinius enters Rome and starts his pilgrimage to become the Pope of Rome. But just about 160 AD, he must have got found out or something anyway, but he misses out on getting the job. And Valentinius is a really important character in this story because he's the dude where you get this compounding of the Gnostic gnosis of Jesus with all this other crap, like you see in the Apocrypha of John, that really belongs in the Pharisee tradition. And sort of, if you try and work out where that came from, you'll find yourself drifting back through the Book of Daniel and Enoch and back into, Zoroastrianism. And that seems to be the best explanation for the other stuff that's confounded and presented as Gnosticism. So my conclusion to answer your question was that a lot of those so-called early religions were practicing sort of you know, through this range of bloody Gnostics. Well, sorry, Valentinius, I think, was a compilation of a bit of the Old Testament Pharisee type crap and the Gnosis. It was a compilation, and they were using that to try and undercut and get the seat of Rome for authority. They were found out, and what we know now is at 166 AD and also at 189 AD, that both papal seats were vacated simultaneously. So that had to come from an outside source, I would suggest, and I think that outside source was Rome. That sort of told me that the Romans were running the religions at that midpoint. And then, of course, we get Constantine comes in, and he does. He uses the whole religion to divide and conquer. You know, that, what do they have it? They have 4 emperors, and leave himself as number 1 emperor. And he's also got the name Flavius in his name. So when I saw that, I thought, oh shit, there's a connection back to the guys that started this religious stuff. Now, I know I'm hopping around all over the joint, but I'm trying to give you a perspective that there's a fair bit in the story.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I got lost a long time ago.
Yeah, I guess so. Let me just kind of put everything in a nutshell. All right, so let me just make sure I'm putting everything in a nutshell and get a better understanding. You're saying that the Gospel of Thomas predates the other 4 Gospels.
Correct.
And you say that the reason why you've come to this conclusion is, and you said something about the Romans before the 4 Gospels came out had the true story of Jesus, and those were somehow revised and preserved, and I guess resurrected or something like that in the Book of Thomas, which came out after.
Let me correct you on that, right? So Jesus was a real dude. The sayings are real. They exist. They ended up in a collection, right, somewhere down in just off Alexandria, and then they were buried, right, for a long period of time. We didn't even know that the Gospel of Thomas existed until the discoveries in the 1900s, and then the big discovery was the Nag Hammadi find in 1945. So to most of the world, they just didn't even exist until they were dug up.
Okay, so this information was hidden all these years, and during the time it was hiding, we had the 4 Gospels emerge, and then after that, the Gospel of Thomas came out, or was put together after the 4 Gospels? Or
no, not at all. No, the Gospel of Thomas. Well,
so the Gospel of Thomas was out before the 4 Gospels.
The sayings existed, right, because of Jesus existing 33, 36 AD. So they had to be been said, if they're truly his, before 36 AD at the latest. When Thomas records them, well, that could be debatable. But the scholars, the early camps, say it could be as early as 40 AD. So that seems to be the earliest date. All I'm saying is that the Romans used those sayings, whether it be from specifically the Gospel of Thomas, but the Gospel of Thomas gives us, you know, an alternative list of Jesus sayings that we can then validate philosophically.
Okay.
And, yeah.
So these sayings that you're saying, these original sayings, were recordings from the Romans.
No. The original sayings are Jesus' words. The Romans used them to.
Who recorded them? Who recorded them?
The Romans, and specifically the architect. The architect was Nerva, and he probably had Roman scribes who he said, "All right, you go do Matthew." So Luke, Mark was written for the Alexandrian community. Luke was written for the Jewish community, and Matthew was more for the global community. And this is why we see the
Actually, I would say Matthew's for the Jewish community, but okay.
No.
Well, the way it's written. Yeah.
Hey, no, because they put it first, right? It was for all the newcomers. That was written specifically for anyone that they wanted to orientate to the religion, but it also included the nativity scene And the nativity scene was this, we're presented with this image of three magi, right? So they're the Persian original corruptors that were working for Cyrus. The magi, three magi, are bowing to Rome's baby Jesus. That was very figurative to say to the world, now Rome owns the story.
That sounds like conjecture to me. Yeah, I see what you're
Well,
saying,
no,
but
it's deduction. That's all it is. It's deduction. It's not, you know, come up with a better story.
Yeah, but
You know.
but again, what you're doing is you're doing parallelism. You're looking at two things, and then you're making this conjecture that because these two things are similar, one thing must have came from the other. As a and then it seems by default you're saying that the Romans actually came up with the story first, and it was added in the book of Matthew.
No, wait a minute. I get caught up by, what do you mean by I'm saying that the Romans came up with the story first?
Well, like you said, you oppose the idea of me saying Matthew was written to the Jews. I say that it is because of, I mean, there's so many elements in there that seem to appeal only to Israelites. I mean, for instance, you got the genealogy, which talks about it's the monarchical line of Joseph of Jesus, including King David and Solomon in there and all the other kings.
Yeah, but all that's doing is trying to establish to the wider community. See, at the time of Appian, Caligula brought Appian, who was representing the Greek community at Alexandria, to Rome, and he brought up Philo and his brother Alexander the Albrach. He brought them up to Rome to have this out about who was telling the true story, because the Greeks traditionally, ever since, well, certainly back in the days of Antiochus IV, the Greeks have always vigorously challenged the story that the Pharisees were telling, and probably quite rightly so, because it's so full of a lot of bullshit, made up stuff. But so what I'm saying is that Matthew, they had part of the storytelling, and so this is where I probably need to bring in Josephus, right? Because I'm concluding that Josephus was also written by or under Nerva's guidance, and that Josephus isn't really even a real individual. What they're doing is exactly what was done with the Book of Kings. They're creating the historical context for their story.
Well, yeah, I understand that. My confusion is why. I mean, I don't see any strong evidence that that the book of the Gospel of Thomas was written before the four Gospels. I don't see any strong evidence that the Romans had the true sayings of Jesus, before the four Gospels were written.
Okay, I'll give you, if, and apologies to the group, but I can give an example of one saying that's used in the Gospel of Thomas and explain its context, and then show you how it's used in the Bible, if you like, and then ask you one question: which one came first, right?
Yeah,
so
that's the challenge right there. Which one came first, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read you saying number 8, and anyone that's got an objection, just jump in. But so just hang on a minute, I'll grab it up.
Okay.
Won't take long. So it's one that's in both. 2, 3. Okay, here it is. So it's saying number 8. So this is the Gospel of Thomas version. And he said, the man is like a wise fisherman who cast his net into the sea and drew it up from the sea full of small fish. Among them the wise fisherman found a fine large fish. He threw all the small fish back into the sea and chose the large fish without difficulty. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. Well, what that saying's about is that event. I don't know whether anyone here has experienced it, but basically you can go through life, caught up in a whole manner of triviality. But then if you get some certain significant event occur, such as the loss of a loved one, it really causes you to reshape your thinking about what's important. And what it turns out to be important is, time spent with loved ones and, this, the divinity part, if you like, or the love and the caring and the compassion becomes the important thing. So that's exactly what that saying's on about. So let's go and see how it's recorded in the Bible. So when we go to Matthew 13:47, they say the parable of the net. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind. So they're starting to twist it a little there. Which when it was full, they drew it to shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So now instead of divinity being a singularity and all this triviality, they've just brought us the evil, the good and evil concept, this duality, which is notably something that you'll find a big deal in Zoroastrianism. So shall it be the end of the world? The angels shall come forth. So now we're getting the mystical stuff added, and sever the wicked from amongst the just. So now, they're emphasizing this wicked nature in humans, which, by the way, the religious story says is innate, but I disagree with that. I think that evil and good are both innate. And shall cast them into the furnace of fire. So now they're trying to scare the shit out of them. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Jesus saith unto them, Have ye understood all these sayings? They say unto him, Yea, Lord. So now Jesus is the Lord. So they're trying to make that godly connection. Then said he unto them, Therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is an householder, which bringeth forth out of his treasure things new and old. So clearly to me, they're putting the scary shit spin on probably what could be classed as just a very simple but very accurate philosophical observation.
Okay, so we got we got them saying different things. So how do we from here determine which one of those came first?
Well, you could think of it this way, Well, this is my premise, right? I'm backing that there's a continual of events through history. Book of Daniel is one, Book of Isaiah is another, where the religious, the empires took the true story and then bastardized it, right? And so what I'm saying, this saying is exactly the same thing. And so therefore I'm saying that the precursor is the true story, the one that we can philosophically validate in an experiential way, right? Because if we look at all the other instances, the Book of Daniel, we get a lot of magic and myth thrown into the story. If we go back to the Book of Isaiah, again, a lot of myth and magic. It's a prophetic thing. Yet, and you got to know that for 100 years, scholars have been saying they do not agree with this idea that one person wrote all of the Book of Isaiah. They say that at least, sorry, is that my mate Benny again? Yeah, Benny's showing his flag, so he must work for the Empire. But anyway, that eagle symbol, that's a really interesting symbol. I've got an article that I wrote. That eagle symbol, you see it reign all the way through, starting with Zoroaster, at least, and possibly even going back to the Egyptians. But so that's the symbol of ego. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that this particular event or this particular saying doesn't refute the other evidence from the other episodes through history. In fact, it endorses it. It says that yes, this is exactly the same thing. The true wisdom has been bastardized with mythology guilt and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Again, it still seems like there's a lot that's just not adding up. I mean, there's a lot of I have a lot of questions. There seem to be a lot of holes there.
Well,
But a lot of conjecture. But I mean, you're an atheist, right? I take it.
no, I wouldn't allow myself to be labelled that because no, because what the atheist position says is basically that there's no God. I don't subscribe to that at all.
Oh, okay, okay.
I
So
don't.
you're an evidentialist then?
So here's what I would say. I'd be an anti-egotist, so I see ego as the root of all problems for humanity.
Okay.
So I'd put that label on quite happily.
Okay.
But I'd
Okay.
also say that experience, if we as a community put aside our theisms and just spoke about our experiential reasons for following an ism of any sort, we could not help but agree. It's only when we start talking about the things that we can't bring to experience that we get into a lot of trouble, and we get into these circular debates that just go nowhere. Benny, I hope you're paying attention. Well, hang on, what's he say? I'm trying to educate this Benny and get him off the gangster list and become a good person. Because you're going to hell, Benny, if you're still being a gangster. Yeah, and that cross symbol, I tell you, that cross, you see that I saw that on bloody Philo's hat. So Philo of Alexander had a hat with this cross symbol on it and then Alpha Omega. That cross symbol's really important, and I think that's why they told the story of pinning him to a cross, to sort of carry that symbolisation forward. But, I seriously doubt I reckon they just killed him because he was a massive threat to the Pharisees. So the Pharisees knocked him off. But anyway. Yeah, look.
I'm definitely gonna look. I'm definitely gonna look more into it because I haven't really done that much research on the topic of the Gospel of Thomas. I've just heard it brought up every once in a while, but never really looked thoroughly into it myself. So.
Yeah. Well, what you could do, you could fork out $4 and buy my book.
And this is being said live, so people.
Well, I hope lots of people.
Free advertisement there.
It's called What Is This Thing Called God? And I deliberately wrote it as GO in brackets OD, not the normal God. I got that idea from what the Jewish people do with G underscore God.
Right.
And then I said as a second title, that's Religion Explained. Now let's talk peace, because my bottom line was that it seemed to me that everyone's talking about the same thing, bar the bullshit stuff.
Got a lot of bad reviews there, Rob.
Oh, yeah, I know. But that's apologist. I need someone to buy it and give me an honest assessment, because the first guy... No, wait a minute. The first guy, if you read his story and you read my book, you can clearly see he's an apologist. The second guy was a guy that I rubbed his nose in an interview, and in an atheist group, and he hadn't even read the book before he made a comment. And the third
the
guy,
atheists do that. They don't give a fuck about evidence,
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the third guy's a really crazy cat. He must have been an apologist. I ran across him probably about 12 months ago, and he was sort of putting up high credentials around himself, and I said, all right, mate, I'll take you on. Let's have a debate. And he said, yep, I'll be in for it. And then when I tried to get the debate, I had to chase him for a bit. He wouldn't come to the table. And so I'd sort of forgotten about him, and then 12 months later, here he is, putting his 2 bobs worth on my thing. And I could tell by his comments that he hadn't even got round to reading it. So they're not fair, those critiques. But they are killing the book sales, I tell you. That's for sure. Anyway,
Well,
but that's life.
I'm gonna step out. So it was a pleasure talking to you, though. So.
Well, I appreciate your questions too, mate. I really do. I like the challenge. I really do.
Benny, I would really like to talk to you someday, Benny.
Hey, what's Benny up to? Get out of here.
Yeah, Benny, he's always
Benny.
writing. He's always writing weird stuff.
He is,
Then he's
yeah.
drawing on his.
Benny's our pet project. We're trying
I
to
don't-
turn him into a good person.
I don't have this guy figured out yet, but he makes me laugh.
Well, there's something to him.
He's
I
a-
think there's some good in him. He's got a good wolf in there somewhere, but shit, he's
Yeah.
still got the evil wolf too.
He's always changing his avatar, drawing on it, and then writing these random weird things on the chat. But anyway, hey, J Dubs, man, it's good talking to you, man. It's good seeing you again. So,
Take care, brother.
all right, take care.
man.
Nadia, take care.
I've done it again, haven't I? Sorry. We'll do it again, Rob, if need be. Lol. What was that, J-Dubs? What are you saying there? We'll do it again? I wasn't watching the chat window. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you were. I think you said something to the fact like the Pharisees bumped Jesus off, and I think I said something like, "Yeah, we'll do it again if need be." It was a joke.
No, you got to understand. See, I'm very for the Jewish people and a lot of empathy because my feeling is that they've been really dudded significantly through history. And I got to wonder about, like I know that one of the guys that was selling some of that gas, he was actually connected to the Pharisee lot. He owned the factory. So I know that already. So, golly, that's why I use the term Pharisee. I don't like to associate the Jewish people because I think their true religion goes back to the Canaanite and it's potentially a valid but mythical rendition. So, no, I'm very careful not to badmouth the Jewish people. I think that a shitload of harms come to those people. And I know some Jewish folks and I find them to be really lovely people. Oh, except there's this rabbi that I'm not a fan of that I came across. Yeah, so there you go. Anyway, what else is happening, people?
Rob, I just want to fuck the rest of your day up. There's
Yeah,
no
go ahead,
God,
mate.
mate. There's no God. Sorry.
I know, but here's the question you haven't answered. What is this thing called God?
Yeah,
Another place
that's
for the
the problem.
book. Hey?
Yeah, no fucking problem.
Yeah, that's right.
But-
You just
but
got to
there's
know
no-
what. No, you got to know what.
Get over it, mate.
You got to know what that means. What is this thing called God? You got to understand what it is. See, there's I think we've already spoken about this, John. Did we speak about that sonoluminescence stuff?
Yeah, but if we want to talk about that, I have to go down to the bottle shop and get some beers.
Yeah, typical Aussie.
Well, mate, fuck, I need some fuel. And that's,
Yeah, I understand, mate. No, I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
well, I'll listen to you all day long, You can rant and rave. Like, I need the fuel. Simple as that. No fuel, no gun.
All right, well, you take over. No one's saying
What, take over the world?
No, well, no, that's not a good idea. It needs to be. I think.
Well, God's tried it and failed.
Wrong God, mate. That was a work of fiction, and he was working for the empire.
Well, according to the Bible, he's killed about 2 million, not to mention the Noah's flood. So
Well,
he's tried. He tried.
Yeah, well, you should see what Islam does to this world. I mean, their death count, I think, is up around 270 million. So,
Yep. Well, the Muslims just need to calm the fuck down, honestly.
Well, they need to stop. they need to follow a Gnostic Jesus because I tell you, they get if you look at their history, they've been played all through history, and it always ends up in a bloodbath. Always. They're dangerous cats. Well, not the people, right? It's just this belief shit. You know, get the belief out of the state, and you know they're back to ordinary folk again. It's just this. Oh, mate, I'm telling you. You have a look.
You got a belief in Jesus. Get that out of your head.
No, it's not a belief, mate. He says seek and find. He doesn't say believe. In fact, if you like,
honestly, I'm just going to defend you right quick. I mean, for him, I mean, the Jesus that he thinks existed around that time was more of like sort of like the model for like evangelical preachers, sort of like that. You know, sort of like a messianic preacher, but it's not like he was magic or anything. Like he literally walked on water or turned water into wine, multiplied loaves and fishes and stuff.
He's not even an evangelist, Wolf. I think he's sorry, is that Wolf?
No, well, I didn't say he was an evangelist. I said he served as kind of like a model for that. Except like if anything, I feel I'm just gonna give an example just right quick. Like Joel Osteen, for example, aka Mr. Smiles. I think you know he sort of like is kind of chill. He doesn't. I mean, you know, you don't see him like bashing on gay folks or anything like that, or like talking about how science is evil.
I know the guy you're talking about because I've seen him, but he's a con artist too because he pockets a lot of cash out of his little racket, but he does seemingly do it well. But I wouldn't use the term evangelist. I'd be more happier, although you're right, because he does seem to attract, like he had those 7 churches, so he did get some sort of a following, but it's more about authenticity and genuineness and caring and compassion and philosophy than it is, you know, preaching about bullshit stories about an afterlife and, you know, an external God. He's just setting people straight and saying that, look, if you know yourself honestly and you face who you really are, you can have a good life and you don't have to be a servant to any individual. So it's a very liberating concept is what he's... And I think that's a major threat to these empires and the Pharisees because, you know, the old Pharisee, he would have lost his ties if Jesus had his way. The real dude, so that's the way I see it anyway. So it's not see, these are all these concepts that people have got in their head about this stuff because it's been rammed down people's throat for so long. I'm just saying it's just been used to service empires. Look at that, kings and queens. Yeah.
That's why you've got to get Jesus out of your head. It's been rammed down your rock. I can see it, mate.
Like John likes to say, get Jesus out of your head and get a beer in your stomach.
That's right. Hey, and then you can get on with your life.
Hey,
John, we tried to help you last night. Do you feel better or things still pretty bad?
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better after you gave me that beautiful sermon.
You can't go.
I don't know how many people were there, but we tried to give John an intervention.
Yeah, that sermon you gave me was absolutely divine. I want to do it again.
Did you give him? Was it deism or were you just messing with his head?
He stopped the voices coming inside my head.
Hey, mate,
yeah, I was able to fix John's voices, but I still can't get mine under control.
But we're gonna do it all over again, okay? I loved it.
Well, go.
Oh, no, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't start till about 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Oh, you need it. This is sort of church with grog, right, or church with beer.
Yeah, that's the one. And I like talking about the empty bottle story. I love that one. I'll give you a little story. It's called there was a genie in the bottle, and my evidence is there's me empty bottle. And they say, no, you're bullshitting. And I say, hang on, I'm going to the fridge, I'm going to get another empty bottle. And that's my evidence. Empty bottles.
I'm not with you. How does that prove there's a genie in it?
Because it's empty.
Yeah, what? Well, you drank it, right?
No.
Oh, it just disappeared. What? Like the genie drank it?
Yeah, that's what we call hard evidence.
I'd call it bullshit that you've been Yeah. Bullshit.
No,
Well,
it's all true. And I
Yeah,
prove it to myself. Every time I go and get a carton, I prove it to myself.
yeah.
I
You
feel
see,
like
that's
this is kind of like I feel like this is kind of like sort of like an example of why the precept argument is bullshit.
Oh, sorry, mate. Say that again. I was just looking at Benny's artwork.
Yeah, he sucks. Yeah, that guy sucks too.
What did you say, Wolf?
See, the lack of evidence is evidence. It's as simple as that.
Who is that? Nephilim Free?
Hey, now, I'm still looking for
Nephilim Free is not too bad of a guy. Have you been able to talk to him, Rob, yet?
I've been trying, mate, honestly. I'm up to, I think, day 17 or 18 or some bloody thing, but he won't come near me.
Rob, you'd be better off if you were bashing your skull in with a hammer.
Oh, no, that's all right. I like Neff. I just want to have that. Because, see, we started on the debate on the Book of Daniel, and he wanted me to list out all the things that happened, and I knew what he was up to. But I wouldn't list them out. I wanted to tell it my way, and then with that, he kicked me out of the room. So now that I start the room, he won't be able to kick me out. But I want to have that session with him. He won't come. Oh, he's got a friend called John. John's a nice bloke. I don't know whether you guys have come across him. That's Jon. John Doe. His name. He's not a bad dude. I've had a couple of chats with him.
John Doe, he died.
Hey?
He's dead.
Yeah, no, this is another John Doe, mate.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, he must be dead too.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Oh, hang on. It's all right. Were you talking? It's Rob's brother. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just looking at Benny's stuff. Is my mic low? No, it's not, John. Mic's okay. Oh, yeah. Well, what else is news? Hey, what's anyone got a view on our Aussie guy that got thrown in jail for 7 years in Egypt?
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
What did he do?
For what?
For lack of evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's lack of evidence, and you get thrown in jail for 7 years.
Yeah, well, that's true. Actually, this guy, he works for. He's an Australian, and he works for BBC. Al Jazeera. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Al Jazeera. It was the BBC that were doing a silent protest. He works for Al Jazeera, and he was working in Egypt, and he got hauled in to court for being a sympathiser or something with the. Was it the Christians?
No.
Well, no, the Muslims. Muslims.
The Brotherhood.
The Brotherhood, yeah. And with that, they put him on trial and put him in prison for 7 years for reporting. And so, massive miscarriage of justice. And the president of the country won't interfere.
Yeah, lack of evidence is evidence. That's how the system works.
Yeah, well, it's wrong. It's bloody.
All they do is open up their book and go, "Yep, that's how we're going to do it." And you see the part where they says, "Oh, you want to see the evidence? You have to pay for it." I love that system.
Is that true? Because I've been wondering whether you can get the court transcript. Because if you could see whether it's flawed legally.
No, that was on TV. They said the prosecution says if you want to see the evidence, you have to pay for it, and they wanted something like $200,000 or some bullshit. And they says, well, you don't pay for evidence, you got to present it. And they says, yeah, but we've reversed the tables on you. This is a different court system. This is how it works.
Yeah.
So in other words, you're guilty before you're innocent.
Well, that should be vigorously challenged because, law, one of the basic premises of law, I would have...
No, see, different countries...
No, one of the basic premises of law is transparency, I think, or it should be, anyway.
Yeah, but that's in your country. Their country's different.
Our country, mate.
Yeah.
Or have I been moved offshore because of my beliefs, have I?
But there you go. That's how it works for them. And if you don't like it, give shit.
Yeah, but that's where there should be an international outrage because
there is an international outrage.
Oh yeah. Well,
but guess what? They're still in jail.
Yeah, but the question in my mind is get the evidence out of these so-and-sos and get it on the table so people, even... Hey?
I think you're missing the point.
No,
they want you to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to crowdfund the how much is it? 200 grand.
Yeah, and that might be just for a fucking 10-second video clip.
Oh, I reckon if you raise the 200 grand, they come up with some other story, because that's just smokescreen. But if you take up that line, you'll expose the bastards. And if you don't challenge them, so it's like that episode in Syria, right? You had this chemical attack on these kids, and kids were killed and everything. And to this day, no bastard's been, brought to court for it. It's like they've just dropped it. Now, these are our community leaders, the international community, so it's supposed to be the UN, and they're not pursuing it. And what you also get is you get the guys that went in there to investigate it, they get the Nobel Peace Prize. Doesn't anyone smell a rat?
Of course they do. And
yeah, but you see it goes on, mate. No one does anything about it.
Yeah, I realise that, but that's what happens when you're dealing with uneducated people.
Yeah, but, well, you're a people, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'm not in their country. You don't understand.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, I'm not trying to be personally critical, I'm just trying to say, and I'm in the same boat, I'm not doing anything yet, but by geez, if my book gets out, I will. I'm going to point my finger right at that Syrian issue, and I'll point my finger at this bloody judge, because these things are obviously crooked. Yet
because
we as the global community don't do a damn thing about it, eh? Look,
I'll give you an example. You know people who are slow learners, do you think they know they're slow learners? They don't know.
I'm a slow learner, and I do know.
Yeah, but they don't know because they're even more stupider.
Even more stupider. All right, mate. How do I know I'm a slow learner? Where I learned it,
because you admit it. They don't.
But I learnt it, right? Because I didn't know for a while. I was doing this Tai Chi with this Asian dude, and he would get the move in one go, and I just couldn't. I had to do it about 10 times. But when I worked out that was my learning method, then I was right from there on in. So being a slow learner, I don't think is an excuse.
It's not an excuse, it's a fact.
Well, I agree it's a fact. I know that firsthand.
And that's how these guys operate, okay? It's the way they've been brought up, right?
Yeah, but hang on. Here's you and I don't know, I'm not hearing from the other dudes in the room, but we agree that it sounds shifty, right?
Yeah.
But what are we doing about it?
Well, you've got your way, and if I had my way, I'd be getting on a fucking aircraft carrier, loading the fucking thing up, right, and start bombing the cunts. Right? And you might say, oh, gee, you didn't do it right. Well,
Yeah.
that's my fucking version. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Blow them
well,
up.
that's right.
And
But
then,
no,
and
there's only one problem here is that we're wannabes. we
Yeah, but
want to be.
hey,
Yeah.
sometimes I've got an old saying: you've got to be cruel to be kind.
Yes, I actually agree with that. Well, yeah. Well, you know, there are times to shake up the bird's nest, if you like.
You know, and they're going to retaliate and say, "Oh, you don't respect us." Oh yeah, all right.
Yeah, but I disagree. You don't have to go to war to shake people up. You can do it. You can, like
Dr. Freud, paging Dr. Freud to Benny.
What's Benny up to? Where is he? What are you up to now? He's pinched your wolf logo. He's a bloody imitator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Plato said in the dialogue of Gorgias, Plato, which is one of my favorite dialogues, it is far better to suffer injustice than to commit injustice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mean, if you're gonna straighten a wrong through injustice, then there really is no justice in that either. And you're far worse wretch than the guy who is committing the act in the first place.
But here's the solution. Here's the solution to the problem, mate.
And I love that dialogue. I could read it 100 times and still not tire of it. Like, it totally laid it out. It was amazing. If you ever get a chance.
Yeah. What's it called again? Sorry.
The Dialogue of Gorgias by Plato. I'll post a link.
All right, if you would, that'd be fantastic. Because the two works of Plato that I've read and have tremendous respect for are the Republic and Meno. That dude really had it going on. But here's the solution. The term, the sword, the pen is mightier than the sword is actually true, as long as you can get that expression of transparency out into the public domain. So if you can actually force transparency, that's the way to tackle these problems, in my book. So, like, you take that bloody judge, right? If you could get that court, the court document that lays out the case, you'll find that if you presented that to a bunch of lawyers across the world, if they're being authentic, they will say this is a crooked job, and then that guy's cooked. And then you could turn around to the president of that country and say, well, what the hell are you doing not stepping in? And not asking...
I don't think that works, because money in politics changes all that. If they're all getting paid off by an unjust system,
correct,
and they mistake injustice for justice because that's the way it goes, and they've been doing it so long they know no difference now, and that's how they're paid, they won't care. You know? Yeah, even the president himself, if he's receiving, like over here in the United States, it's terrible. Money in politics, it would buy you anything.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but here's where the media fails us, right? And my research shows that the media is owned by other interests, more private interests than they should have. But this is where the media fail, right? This is the media's job. The media's job is actually to find these corruptions and not leave them alone until they're properly disclosed in the public domain, and they fail freaking miserably at that.
Well, over here, the media takes sides, and definitely, you know, there's Democratic newscasts, there's Republican, there's fundamentalist, extremism, all kinds of stuff. So it all depends on what you'd watch, and then the ones that go down the center, they don't ask tough questions anyways. So exactly. It all just depends on who gets paid the most and who yells the loudest. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and a lot of times it's on the side of injustice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that's the problem. So, you know, I thought about this concept of democracy, because I kind of like democracy, or at least its principle, but I think it's short two elements. So democracy's got three: we the people, the law, and the executive. And I think, you know, the way humans function, you need those three elements, but you need them operating with integrity. But what's missing is we don't hold media up as like a fourth column and hold them accountable for delivering, you know, to be the true watchdog and really hold a really sharp light over the function of law and the executive. And then you need a concept, I think, of a fifth column. You need to be always conscious of selfish bastards in our community that run their own agenda. And the media should watch them for, like a hawk, you know, so like the big rich dudes that influence. You know, a big light should be shined on those dudes to say, well, hang on, this guy paid X amount to fund this political enterprise, and, you know, the people should say, well, no, can't have that, because it screws our system around. It's not complicated, but what I'm saying is,
Yeah,
you know,
I guess
we
like
just don't.
whistleblowers in this country are awesome. You know, according to my book, they come from the underground and they do hold the media accountable. So all the stuff that the media thought they'd get in trouble for, everybody knows what sides they're on. They don't care. So whistleblowers come out like Manning and all those guys. Oh, they dump the beans all over the place. The public rolls in it, and they're like, "What are you doing?" You know. So it ends up being individuals like you and me on the internet, you know, going our own way because the public media, thank you, babe. The public media doesn't do their job anymore because they're getting paid not to. It's easier to have congressmen on who like, because they're like, oh, you know, we need Congressman so-and-so on because we get access to insider information, but it's only coming from him, you know? So like, the whistleblowers, like, you know, have done a huge service to the American people, and I think there's still more of that, and that's why they're trying to clamp down on the internet and freedom of information and all that. It's insane because they're going double time. NSA over here backing up everything, telling us what we can and can't say online, shutting us down, listening to our cell phones because they're worried about that. And the Arab Spring that happened with the overthrow of all these countries based on the internet and social media ended up being huge. They didn't even see it coming, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can actually lock it down to a very simple paradigm, though. And the paradigm is this. You have the good, if you like, and that's the authentic spirituality. You have the ego, which is the root of all evil, and its societal form is the empire. And then you have secrecy, right? And if you watch those three elements all through history, you can see that ego and secrecy are the two elements that cause all the problems, right? So if you open up a book on things and you have an open and honest discussion, you'd find that a lot of the troubles that we have in this world wouldn't exist. Hey, you see what Benny's doing to your photo, Wayman? That's our friend.
Oh, chuck him in the fucking slammer. Chuck him in jail. 7 years.
Hey, wait a minute. Say Waka Waka for a second.
What did you say?
Give him that's the fucking death penalty.
Who for? Benny? No, Benny.
Yeah.
Benny here.
That's a death penalty.
No, no, you don't want death. No killing.
Okay, then take away his computer so he can't do it again.
Yeah, that'd work. That'd probably hurt Benny. He wouldn't know what he'd do. He'd probably have to go out and get on the streets and start gangstering.
I'm going to write a new book and a new law.
What's that?
You can't fuck around with people's faces on the internet.
Oh dear. Hey Benny, what app are you using to do that stuff? Oh, now you got me. So I'm going to go out a shot. Hey Benny, what's the app? It's the same. What same? Oh, is that the name of it? Oh, minicam. Oh, okay, mate. Yeah, sorry, you did tell me that. Apologies. So Benny uses minicam to play games. Got to keep those gangsters.
It's
Sorry.
called Don't Draw Jesus Day.
Please, Jesus loves the camera. It's Muzzies, or excuse me. It's usually the Islamists that get butthurt when their prophet is drawn.
Sorry, did they get hurt when their prophet's wrong? You mean?
No. They Muslims get butthurt when you draw their prophet.
Yeah, well, I know the true story about Islam, or at least I think I'm onto it, and it's as crooked as the dog's hind leg.
No. You know, like they said that salt water and fresh water, they don't mix. Well, they just don't. I keep doing the experiment. They just don't mix. It's like fucking oil and water. They don't mix.
No. There's a commonality, and it's Jesus, the real dude, right? That's how you break these religious bullshit stories down.
Oh no, fresh water and salt water just don't mix.
Oh yeah, and Muhammad split the moon in two. Like he literally did that shit.
Well, I split my fucking head in two a few nights ago.
Was that with those bottles of yours?
A mate of mine, right? They call him Tripod. He split this girl in half.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh, I just thought I'd tell you.
Yeah, mate.
It's going in my book.
Yeah.
Was she a virgin?
Yeah, she was a virgin. And he split her in two and made two virgins.
Dear, oh dear.
All right, guys, I'm back. What did I miss? What happened?
Okay, John, where you go?
I heard about splitting. Not good.
There was this guy, I don't know if you've seen him on TV, he used to have 3 legs.
Oh, mate.
You're talking about Rob Harris.
Yes. Bad dude,
man.
Yeah, he had this 3-leg business going on, and that was real.
Yeah, real bad in the end, wasn't it?
Well, I can see why he went after all the girls when you got 3 legs. You know, that was all true. And I remember another story on TV, Mr. Ed. Yeah, that rivaled the talking donkey story with the talking horse story. That was all real.
A horse is a horse, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, a talking horse.
Yeah.
Talking to the supernatural force.
That's the talking horse.
Of course.
Yeah, we all know that one.
Yeah. Come on, what else you got going on? What
Nigerian atheist locked up for lack of evidence.
Really?
Yeah. I heard it on Secular Talk the other day. Apparently this I forgot his name. It was something. It sounded his name sounded Arabic. Mumbo. Something. I have to look back on the video. On
Malma.
Secular Talk. Yeah. Balma. Yeah, that.
Yeah,
okay,
well,
so he came out as an atheist in Nigeria, which was pretty ballsy, and I think they took him to like an insane asylum, which is really the opposite of what they should have done. But now a couple of the doctors, one of them who was more honest in his approach said that obviously there was nothing wrong with this guy. He just didn't the whole God concept just didn't appeal to him. And one of the other doctors that was kind of rather douchey and kind of oblivious said that everyone needs a God, but even though that doesn't really have anything to do with his mental health. So I mean, really, I feel like that needs to be something. Something needs to change with regard to how secular people are treated in the world, like in particular in that region of the world.
Yeah, well, Nigeria is really interesting. If you watch Nigeria from a bigger perspective, you find, so I'll probably mention it here ad nauseum again, but if you go into the internet chat groups, you know, these Christian versus Islam respectful debates, you'll find an over-representation of young Nigerian males, and their patter is very much the same sort of patter. So they all run the similar sort of stories. So it's almost like it's an organised event. Then you have a look at Nigeria today. You've got the kidnapping of those girls made world news. You've got a couple of, I think we're up to about 3 suicide bomb events or bombings. So I think there's some sort of connection, and I might be wrong, with Saudi Arabia too, because these Saudi Arabians, they look like a really suspect group. You know, these really rich dudes out of that country. They seem to keep bobbing their head up in all the wrong places.
Well, you only just worked it out.
Hey?
Well, you've only just worked it out that they're suspect. Fuck, I've known that for years.
Oh, well, I didn't, mate. I saw. Well, I knew about this guy. There's an American rancher that got bumped off, or not bumped off. He died of cancer. And you get a few good people go with cancer. But his wife, she was killed after him in the desert in a car accident where she didn't have a seatbelt on. And just shortly after he goes. Now, this guy was having a ding-dong with some corporation about water rights on his ranch, and he found that this particular company were buying up water rights globally, and apparently they had a Saudi Arabian connection, and I thought, oh, well, now that makes some form of sense. So what I'm thinking is, Reuben, is Reuben here? Yeah, Reuben, I think I'm one of those Jews.
What you get?
Reuben, I'm thinking this way at the moment. And this is me trying to get my head around this second book, but I'm thinking that we've got the Roman Empire, and they're basically the precursor to Christianity and the empires across the world. So that's all of Europe, the kings and queens through there, and they're all crooked and running a scam to, you know, profit themselves. And then I'm thinking on the other side of the coin, you've got the Pharisees, which start with the Persians. That then drifts down and becomes, you know, the bad rabbis. And then you've got an offshoot where that rabbi that started Islam with Muhammad, and you've got a different view on that. But then I think, well, that's around the Arabian area, and I think these Saudis are on that sort of side of the fence. So you know how we've been talking about 2 camps, 2 empires? So I'm thinking that they're part of the other side, and it's that side that are making the major play now to try and get to world domination. That's my theory.
Well, it ain't gonna happen now, boy.
Well, Jesus, mate. I think they've got Putin in their pocket, and I also think that they've got the Chinese elite in their pocket. So I don't know. I wouldn't bet.
The Chinese are on our side.
Hey?
The Chinese are on our side.
I don't know, mate. They were doing a lot of military work, and they were doing it out in the deserts.
No. I've been there. They love Aussies. They love us.
No, they come and buy our country. I'll tell you what else they do too. If you've been watching the news, they actually, on the back of that plane, you know that plane that went missing, right? On the back of that, they sent 3 warships down to help out in the search. But on the back of that, there was a very quick little news bulletin, and it said that the Chinese government had asked the Australian government in the upcoming July war games, so they're going to have some war games with the Chinese, They wanted the Australian military to lead the whole effort and have their boys working under the Australian military. Well, you think that through for a minute, mate. What that means is that they get exposure to how we operate.
Oh, fucking hell. Oh, what? In a couple of fucking boats going around the ocean going, oh, your turn to fire, my turn to fire. Fuck.
Well,
we do that. We do that now with the Americans. So what?
Why do you think though? Do you think it's a reasonable question for a foreign military power to ask like a little mob like us, right, as the leaders of the war games and their soldiers working under our team? Wouldn't it be more real? No, wait a minute. Wouldn't it be more realistic that if you're going to play war games, they set up their side, we set up our side, and then they go play games? Not to mention that playing the games is a waste of freaking money anyway.
Well, you've got to do something. You know, you can't just go and put the fucking boats on shore and say, oh, park them there until we need them. You know?
No, mate. Look, when I look at the bigger picture, I smell a rat. I smell a rat. Smell a rat. Yeah.
It's like the Yankees have got fucking military bases in Australia, and they play games with us. What, you think that we're doing a conspiracy to find out how they fucking shoot?
I don't mind that paradigm, because the thing is, if we didn't have a relationship with the Americans, and I kind of like Americans, I've been over there, and they're not bad folk when you meet them on the ground. If we didn't have that relationship, I guarantee you, we would have been taken over by Indonesia ages ago.
No fucking chance.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, what you think Indonesia...
You think we could stand on our own against Indonesia?
Fucking oath.
Really?
Yeah, no, not really, truly. It's like...
What about China and Indonesia if they got together and decided that they like... You see, China like our resources. Hey, and here's another thing you might not know.
Oh, everybody likes fucking resources.
Go and have a look at... the Chinese are building a massive port down in... I think it's just to the left of the Korean mob. And it's just in an alcove there. They're spending a fortune building this resources port.
Yeah,
and guess what we've got? Lots of resources.
Oh, well, is it? Oh, of course, everybody wants fucking iron ore. You know, I've got a few Chinese friends, right? And one of them said to me, they said, when the iron ore runs out, right, we're going to go broke. Yeah, right? And I said, well, when the iron ore runs out, and you're going to go broke too, because you're going to have all these fucking people out of work. So
yeah, but look at it this way, mate. If they own the country and they've got the resources, isn't that a better economic return to their country? Just if they were, if they just happen to be self-interested.
Listen. If China come and bought fucking 1,000 fucking acres or 1,000,000 acres, it's not like I can put it in a bag and take it back to China. So I don't care.
Yeah, but it also has a political influence. I mean, if they land the property, they're going to argue for a voice in politics. I bet you'll see that happen.
It doesn't matter. Look, I don't care if they want to invest in a fucking sheep station and fucking grow sheep and sell them back to their own country. I don't care, right? That's business. I'd do the same in their country too. And people do that in their own country. They set up fucking Hungry Jacks and all that sort of shit, and they don't care. You know, I've been over there. There's lots of American companies over there. So what? Yeah. That's business.
Well, no, look, I don't, to me, I think we should look at the planet as one place, get rid of all the borders. That'd be a decent idea, but you've got shitty government.
You can't get rid of the borders because everybody would want to come over here. They're trying to do that now, but we stopped it.
Yeah, but, well, that's another debate. We can get into the argument on climate and see... Yeah, like you know, we really, I think we've really got some major problems and headaches coming our way with climate, and they require a global effort.
But climate is a global issue.
Yeah, exactly. But if we can't tackle it as a global entity in agreement, well, fuck, you know, pardon the French, but it just ain't going to happen. And if it don't happen, I think we're going to be in big trouble. What I mean by that, if we can't allow the scientists to really sort of play out whatever they think is the best strategy, and just let them have the reins, unless we do something like that, I think we might be in big trouble. You know, up top of Queensland, that they've got the cane crops were failing because I think it was heat. Heat was the issue.
Yeah.
Well, what if it keeps warming up, right? How are those? Because they were saying it'd take them 3 years to get back on financial safe footing. Well, what if it doesn't if it keeps warming up? Their crops fail. And what happens if crops fail? What happens if crops fail?
I'll tell you what happens, all right? There's some places in Australia, right, where it was too cold. Now it's getting warmer, right, in those places where it's too cold. Well, that's where you plant the next load of crops. It's called moving with the times. If the fucking river doesn't go past your backyard, you got to shift house.
Well, these farmers, these cane crops, guys, they're going to tough it out until they go broke. Now, how are they going to re-establish another one? They've got no economic way of, you know, starting afresh. All they've got is a debt and a worthless asset.
I know, but that's what happens in life. I'll give you an example. You know, before the car was invented, we had horse and carts. And the bloke who made the best fucking cart, he went broke. And the bloke who made the car, he started up. So someone loses, someone gains.
Yeah, you're assuming, of course, that that climate's going to be stable in other regions and stable enough to accommodate those crops. So we're talking Queensland, that'll be warm weather. It's cooler as you move down. So you're basically assuming that the cane crop will move down into New South Wales in the first instance, or something like that, right?
It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. And I've seen it. I don't know if you watch Landline on TV, but there's people moving fucking cattle 100 kilometres to greener fucking pastures, and the way they've been moving them is on foot because it's too hard to truck them down there, right? And the reason why they're doing that is because they've said to themselves, listen, this is not going to work bringing in all this food because it's not raining, so we're just going to move the cattle. And they move something like 10, 20,000 cattle at a time. And, hey, when I saw that, I went, you beauty. At least now someone's worked it out that, yep, move the fucking cattle to greener fucking pastures. And that's exactly what's happening. You know, and like I said, it won't happen overnight, but it's happening.
Yeah. I don't know who's running the room now, but it's still broadcasting live, mate, and we're thinning out this herd.
Yeah, so that's what happens, right? And you know, and there's going to be some people who can't move their fucking cattle.
Yeah, but you're still assuming, right, that the climate catastrophe. Because so what? Who's our top guy? What's his name? The guy that got dumped by Abbott, Flannery, right? I think it's Flannery or something like that. He's our top climate dude, and he's basically saying we've got 6 years or else we're in deep shit. So science, right? So it's not just, you know, about a farmer handling the you know, the changing patterns and you know, farms shutting down here and opening up. This dude's saying that, you know, in 6 years' time we're in deep shit.
Yeah.
Based on all the modelling. So what, do we just discount him and say he's wrong? And I think that's the biggest problem. You know, you got to take the knowledge, not the bloody beliefs. What's the best knowledge? Sorry?
Well, you follow the climate scientists. That's what you do. Now,
Yeah.
like you said, you know, some people are going to go broke because their farm's going to be worth jack shit. But someone else is going to start a farm up and say, okay, this is where we're going to do it. And this is the best place for it. And
yeah, well, they're going to have to do it with the advice of those scientists and some sense of so somewhere along the track, someone's going to have to listen to those scientists and say, well, all right, if I invest my money here, and this will play out anyway, but my concern is, do they have enough time to play these games? Right. So
if I had a farm, 100,000 acres, whatever it was, and I can actually see it. I don't need some scientist to tell me, but I would take their advice, and it looks like, oh shit, it hasn't rained here for fucking 2 or 3 years, and you know it doesn't look like it is. But I'm going to take the punt, sell up, and fucking move to a farm where it is viable and the climate suits this environment, and move all my sheep and my cattle and all the shit, and just do it. Don't wait for other people to tell you.
Well, it's a case of survival. And it comes down to the fact that you've got to make a decision. You've got to back your judgment, right? Otherwise, you're in deep shit.
Yeah, you've got to back your judgment. Yeah, at the end of the day, you might be wrong, and you go, oh fuck, the climate's fucking reversed. You know, and you go, oh shit, guess what I did wrong? You know, you have to move with the times. It's like computers. You know, if you're running Windows 98, it ain't gonna fucking work today.
Oh, it'll still chug along. But what Microsoft do there is that that's their way of actually